7 o'clock on the top. I got my drop top cruising in the streets. What? Oh, it's so good to see all of you here, you guys. Oh my goodness. Welcome, welcome, welcome back, guys. The Jaybefaunt channel is also part of the Revolutionary Blackout Network. So you guys can find me there on Sundays for the JB show and Thursdays for the Savvy and JB show. So good to have you all joining on this beautiful day. Today is January 1st, 2025. It is a Wednesday. Wow, we are starting off the year strong. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Just to let you guys know, if you guys have not already, go ahead and give a like. This actually helps me out very much. I appreciate it. And thank you in advance. If you want to wait till the end, that's fine. Go ahead and wait till the end if you want to give a like or dislike. If you don't like me, that's fine. Look, everybody has their own personal opinions. Your opinions are wrong, but all right. So if you guys have not already, you guys can actually subscribe to my Substack at Jaybefaunt.substack.com. This gives you email notifications whenever I go live or upload any clips or write any articles. So you guys have that there. Some of you got that email notification 20 minutes before I went live, and you guys were already up to speed on what I was going to be talking about. So I am so glad that you guys were able to do that. Also, if you guys would like to ask me any questions and you guys want a video recorded response, you guys can actually go and get it from me at QBounty. Go to QBounty.com/Jaybefaunt. So you guys have that there as well. So it is 2025 now. And it has been a wild year. 2024 is over. So now let's start to focus on what we need to do in order to grow ourselves, our communities, and build solidarity, right? This is going to be the year. As my comrade Savvy Sab says, 2025 is going to be live. All right. So I'm going to say hello to some people in the chat and we'll get this party started. We're ready to go. We're jamming. And by the way, I got my tea. Yes, it's going to be good. I'm going to sip it. I'm sipping it good. All right. DJ Leader coming in and saying, Happy New Year, brother. This year is going to be crazy. My job career isn't in an office, but in a hospital. So, that's interesting. Do you really need to be in the hospital in order to do your job? And this is what I mean by people who work in administration that don't actually see any patients, that don't interact with any medical personnel. Do you really need to be at location? You know, if you are in a hospital, but if you're in a hospital that has to interact with people, things like that, then yes, of course, I see how you have to be on location. But even a lot of doctors, like I have a friend that's a doctor and she does telehealth visits. Like if she's not feeling well, she can't come in, she'll do her telehealth visits. So it means she'll do video conferences with her patients, you know, so we'll be talking about that. That's going to be interesting. Kate Mack coming in saying, Happy New Year, everyone. Good to see you, Kate Mack. Chris C says, Hey, JB, happy 2025 to you and everyone in the chat. Yes, thank you so very much. It is going to be a productive year. Zoe says, LOL, not the 0% for work in the office. Oh yeah, by the way, guys, to make sure to take that poll. So we're going to look at the poll a little bit later. Kelton says, welcome 2025. Thank you, JB. Thank you so very much, Kelton. Nice to have you in here. Nice to see you. Kat says, in regards to the poll, I was forced to work from home for 6 months during 2020. Was the happiest time of my life. Do tell. I'm actually quite curious about some of you who have worked from home and what your experience was. And what are some of the benefits and disadvantages that you guys have had? Please make sure to put that in the comments and put like Kat did, like regarding the poll, put that in there so that I can start it and then I'll read it. Okay. So please make sure to do that. Edward says, Happy New Year, JB. Happy New Year to you, Edward. All right, Team Edward. Roger Meadows says, let's get it on, baby. Yes, let's get it on, baby. We're gonna be talking, Roger. Happy New Year to you, brother. Sila says, Feliz Nuevo Ano. Happy New Year, JB. Thank you, Feliz Nuevo Ano to you too. Thank you so very much. All right. Terry Connolly says, Happy New Year, comrades. HNY. I love that. All right. Jasmine says, Happy New Year, guys. Good to see you, Jasmine. All right. Nicola says, love to JB. Thank you so much. You guys are so sweet. I love you guys. Oh, my goodness. This is going to be a good one. Who else we got up in here? Who else? We got Janice coming in saying Happy New Year. Janice, I see you, sis. All right, Cobra Commander. I don't know if Cobra Commander's gender. I'm not going to presume, but sibling, good to see you. All right, we got Joseph coming in here saying, I've been on a tea kick lately. Baby, let me tell you, this is my second cup today. Second cup today. And you know what? This morning, it was kind of funny because I was in the mood for pancakes. I was really in the mood for pancakes. And because I'm trying to be very dedicated to healthy eating and stuff like that, I don't know, something in me switched. Like when it came time for me to get pancakes, I was like, you know what? No, I don't want pancakes. I got something that was more high protein and low in carbs. Like, okay, I personally really don't like eggs, but if it's mixed with something so it hides the taste, I'm okay. So I had an omelet with mushroom and spinach. Mushroom spinach omelet, and then I had turkey bacon. Mushroom spinach omelet with turkey bacon, a little bit of cheese. Oh, and I had a little bit of diced tomato. And then I had some fruit on the side. But that was pretty much what I had for breakfast. And I actually felt good after eating breakfast. And then I started planning the show. So that's what I had. And then after that, I had some tea while I was planning the show. And now I'm having tea again. But really good. Really good. And then, you know what's really funny about me? I can get down on a vegetable platter with some either ranch dip or some blue cheese dip. I can get down on a platter. Like if it got celery, carrots, raw broccoli, I'll get down on a vegetable platter. Let me tell you. All right. Steve Wolfbrand coming in saying, hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Good to see you. All right. Mouse coming in saying, Happy New Year, fam. Good to see you as well. All right. Joseph says, I work from home or anywhere I am. My family and I get to travel and spend time together. But being home all the time got me somewhat lazy, and occasionally I miss having structure. Okay, thank you very much for that opinion. All right. And let me check on the on the Rumble side to see if there's anybody saying hello. All right. I just came to say hello. All right. And everybody, we already got people in the chat on the Rockfin side. Rockfin side is the Crip side. Let's go. All right. And let me read this here. Already got a Rockfin chat. Thank you very much for the tip on Rockfin hemp card. It says cancer rates going to nearly double by 2050. People need to watch the contains bioengineered ingredients on their groceries. The potassium bromate in bread, the food dyes, appeal, air quality, PFAs, and water to avoid it. And thank you very much for that. It says Future Warfare Circa 2025 by NASA. Dennis Bushnell says all the latter agencies working to microdust us, spy on us, lie on us, and transhuman species. FAS.org has the document. So this is the new year. It predicted 2020 will be the bio-nano era. The year nanoparticle gene shots came out. Horseradish, good on veggie plat. See, here's the thing. I don't know if horseradish, I don't know. Horseradish. Horseradish feels like, okay, hemp garden. Let me level with you for a second when it comes to horseradish. If I want to clear my sinuses, if I want to, then maybe I'll do horseradish. But I'm just not a fan of it. If I really want to, then that's when I get some Frank's Red Hot. You know what I'm saying? But horseradish, you do you, baby. You do you. All right. Thank you so very much for that. Let's get into the chat, not the chat. Let's get into the show. Let's see what we're going to talk about today. As you guys saw from the thumbnail, we're going to talk about two subjects. We're going to be talking about remote work in 2025. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later in the show. That's going to be our primary story. But first, I want to get into this story about homelessness increase in 2024. This was a story that came out late in the last year. Yes, 2024 was last year. And we're going to be talking about that here. So first subject we're going to be talking about, the first story we're getting into right now is sharp rise in homelessness. What does this mean? And how are we going to combat this? So I want to get into that right now. I have a confession to make. Last week, I neglected an opportunity to help someone homeless while on my way home from dialysis. The paratransit service had an account with a company that sends a car rather than the usual van. The car is kind of like an Uber. I just paid a copay and ride home. At the stoplight, there was an older homeless man that was asking for money. The first time he came to the door was on the right side. The driver purposefully pulled forward when he got to the window. I guess the man didn't realize that he was doing that to avoid him. So the homeless man approaches the driver's side and the driver pulls forward again. No acknowledgement of his presence. No, I'm sorry, I don't have it. No humanity. I just sat there in fear of making the driver angry if I rolled down the window and gave a couple dollars to the man, the couple dollars that I had in my bag, to this guy that was sitting out there that was unhoused. I usually never keep cash in my bag. And I felt like the universe was telling me to be an example to that driver. But I failed. I totally failed. And as I saw that homeless man sit on the curb with his head in his hands, I wanted to cry. The light immediately turns green and my heart sinks. I can't believe I allowed my fear to get the best of me. I say this because it's a new year. And I'm going to try to do my best to be brave in my revolutionary example. Be fearless in love and justice. I still am a work in progress. And I hope that by sharing my transgression, it will all encourage you guys to do better, to be better. Homelessness is an important topic to me because I know what it's like to be unhoused. This is why I became angry at this headline from the Associated Press. Let me share my screen so you guys can see. U.S. homelessness up 18% as affordable housing remains out of reach for many people. This came out on the 27th of December. The United States saw an 18.1% increase in homelessness this year, a dramatic rise driven mostly by lack of affordable housing, as well as devastating natural disasters and a surge of migrants in several parts of the country, federal officials said Friday. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development said federally required tallies taken across the country in January found that more than 770,000 people were counted as homeless, a number that misses some people and does not include those staying with friends or family because they do not have a place of their own. So with that being said, the fact that you have 770,000 people. Now, they typically count the homeless population. They typically choose a day in the year, which is just a snapshot. It doesn't account for everybody that's unhoused. It's typically counting the people who are out in the streets. This doesn't count the people who are in motels. This doesn't count the people who are sleeping on your couch. This doesn't count the people who are sleeping in other places under duress. And remember, we talked about what being under duress really means, right? It's not really a free choice. It's a very limited choice that holds you to under pressure, right? Under coercion, under force. And so because of this, it doesn't really give the real scope of how many people who are unhoused. It could be children. It could be women and children. I've seen women and children that have been homeless. I remember when Rome came down here to do a tour for the poor, and we encountered a homeless family, husband, wife, 3 kids. One of the youngest was still in diapers. And they had a puppy. Here's the thing. Homelessness happens to many people, and it happens because things arise. Difficulty arises, but that difficulty is really due to the system, and I can get into that a little bit later. But that's how extreme it is. 18.1% rise in homelessness, especially since we saw a rise in homelessness the year prior. Let's continue. It says that increase comes on top of a 12% increase in 2023, which HUD blamed on soaring rents and the end of the pandemic assistance. The 2023 increase also was driven by people experiencing homelessness for the first time. The numbers overall represent 23 out of every 10,000 people in the U.S., with Black people being overrepresented among the homeless population. Let's stop right there and let's just dwell on this for a second, right? So when you're saying that we had a 12% increase in 2023 and then another 18% increase on top of that in 2024, you can see how we jumped from over 500,000 to over 770,000. Meaning that the homelessness rate jumped almost 50%. That's a massive, massive jump. That's an explosion of homelessness, driven by people experiencing homelessness for the first time. Why? Because soaring rents and end of pandemic assistance. Meaning the problem is money. It's not some individual problem, because if it was an individual problem, it wouldn't happen as to great of a degree. The issue is it's a systemic issue. Let me continue because I don't want to get on a tangent, a rant right now, because I feel it coming on. So let's continue here. Among the most concerning trends was nearly 40% rise in family homelessness. one of the areas that was most affected by the arrival of migrants in big cities. Family homelessness more than doubled. 13 communities impacted by migrants, including Denver, Chicago, New York City, according to HUD. While it rose less than 8% in remaining 373 communities, nearly 150,000 children experienced homelessness on a single night in 2024, reflecting 33% jump from last year. 33%. That's a third. Kids. I'm going to say something controversial. And what I say, I don't mean to be mean. And what I say, I don't mean to be contentious. But you worrying about somebody in drag reading to a child is less of a worry to me than kids being homeless out in these streets. You're worried about some makeup and a dress, and I'm worried about if kids are able to eat and they don't die from hypothermia. We're not the same. And that's the thing. We can be the same if we start to prioritize material conditions, especially. But the thing is like, also another thing is the migrant issue. And I'm not going to tackle it like the way you think. If we were not destabilizing the countries in the global south and causing people to migrate from their country because of the economic conditions, which influence the social conditions in these countries because of what our country wants to do in that destabilization, they wouldn't be flocking here, which means it wouldn't put a strain on the services that we need to house American citizens who are also homeless. It's a process, baby. There's levels to this. And the problem is that the corporate dictators, the ruling class, the owner class, they want that free labor. They got to have that cheap and free labor that comes in from the southern border, right? We're already seeing the free and cheap labor that they have coming off the planes for the H-1B visas, right? So that they can pay them way lower than they would pay Americans because they want to exploit them because they can't necessarily fight for a higher wage. They can't protest. They can't join a union and go on strike. Because if they do, then guess what? Either the ones that are highly skilled with the H-1B visas or the ones that come from the southern border that are working in construction or agriculture, if they come in, then guess what? They get deported, all right? Or they lose their visa status. And then on top of it, because some of them are also homeless, then guess what? It puts a greater strain on the homeless provisions that we have within our municipalities in this country. And what does it do? It sets a battle, proletariat versus proletariat, worker versus worker, poor person versus poor person. And who's fighting who? It's the poor people fighting the poor people. When in reality, neither group has power. Neither group has put each other in that situation. It was the allowance of the owner class that actually made that happen. This is why it's important to look at things from a macro level. Get 30,000 feet up in the air and see the forest for what it is. Let's continue. Disasters also played a part in the rise in the count, especially last year's catastrophic Maui fire, the deadliest U.S. wildfire in more than a century. More than 5,200 people were staying in emergency shelters in Hawaii on the night of the count. Let's also not forget what happened in Asheville, North Carolina. Hurricane Helene happened. How many of those people are homeless? because of a hurricane that happens in an area that typically doesn't get hurricanes. So of course FEMA's not doing a damn thing that they should. So yeah. And that's one of the biggest parts. That also helps contribute to what's going on. What about Hurricane Milton that hit here in Florida, especially the West Coast? People who don't have homes, people who've lost their homes, who now have to shack up with relatives and loved ones. These are different variables that we have to talk about. Where's FEMA for them? Increased homelessness is the tragic yet predictable consequence of underinvesting in the resources and protections that help people find and maintain safe, affordable housing. So it says, as advocates, researchers, and people who with lived experience have warned, the number of people experiencing homelessness continues to increase. More people struggle to afford sky-high housing costs. Remember, we talked about, according to the Low Income Housing Coalition, that out of reach, article, which actually shows the ranking of some of the most expensive states where it is to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. Here in Florida, Florida is the 10th most expensive state in the country. We're talking about a red state in the South that is the 10th most expensive state to live in. And also, in addition to, and furthermore, as more people migrate to these cheaper states, guess what happens? Our cost of living goes up. Because you have what I like to call more localized gentrification, and now we're having what I like to call intrastate gentrification, meaning people from more expensive states who have a more expensive cost of living are moving to states where the cost of living is cheaper, but it's driving up our cost of living. And now, guess what? We can't afford to live. Because here in Florida, especially here in our places like Orlando, people from Michigan, Illinois, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, they're all moving down here because the cost of living is cheaper, because they may have made their coin up north and said, you know what, I can probably live down there and still make the same amount, but I can live in a more cost-effective way. But then, guess what? Who's raising their prices in order to make more? It's the property managers, right? It's the real estate developers. So now, if you want a decent house, you're going to be spending $420,000 to $480,000 just for your standard beginner house in Central Florida. Maybe more. The condo that I just left, I didn't own it, but when I first moved in 2013, they were trying to sell it for $30,000. Now it's on the market for $165,000. 10 and a half years. 10 and a half years, from $30,000 to $165,000 for a 2-bedroom condo in Orange County. This is why people are going homeless. This is why the homeless rate is jumping. This is also something I want to address too. It says the numbers also come as increasing number of communities are taking a hard line stance against homelessness. Communities, especially in Western states, have been enforcing bans on camping as public pressure grows to address what some residents say are the dangerous and unsanitary living conditions. That follows a 6-3 ruling earlier this year by the Supreme Court that found that outdoor sleeping bans don't violate the 8th Amendment. Homeless advocates argued that punishing people who need a place to sleep would criminalize homelessness. And we're going to get deeper into that in a little bit. Says there was so they talk about some positive news about homeless veterans actually going down. But it's still sad because veterans should not be homeless, especially after serving the country. Right. And so look here. Says the number of homeless people dropped from about 637,000 in 2010 to 554,000 in 2017. But the numbers ticked up about 580,000 in 2020 count and held relatively steady over the next 2 years as Congress responded to COVID-19 pandemic with emergency rental assistance, stimulus payments, aids to states and local governments, and temporary eviction moratorium. So when people say when it comes to homelessness, you can't just throw money at the problem, yes, you can. How do you end homelessness, JB? You give them homes. It's like how do you end hunger? Give people food. Let them eat. And then they won't be hungry no more. And the thing is, people go, well, it's not that simple. It is that simple. Here's the thing about the capitalist system. They want to make things so complex so that you just give up and say, and put up your hands or wash your hands and go, you know what? It's too complex. We can't do it. You're just going to have to be individualistic and depend on yourself. When in reality, the answers are really that simple. They just don't want you to know. So when it comes to that article, I was upset because I did not like to see an increase in homelessness, though I knew it was inevitable. I had a feeling, right? And so I want to ask the chat, what do you think the homelessness rate will be in 2025? By the time we reach the end of December in 2025, what do you think the number is going to be? I'd say that the number will go up another 15% or greater. I think we're going to reach about 850,000 homeless by December. This is because the corporations, they need homeless people so they can arrest and jail them to have more potential slave labor. Let me share this video. This is a great channel. If you're not following this channel, it's called Invisible People. I highly recommend that you guys follow this channel. I will give you guys the link in the chat. But let's just go over just a couple of points in this. I'm not going to play the entire one, but I just want to go over a few points.
The homelessness epidemic is inescapable, forcing its ban on homeless people.
Is there nowhere else to go? Is there just nowhere else that they want to go?
Our city deserves to hold people accountable to bad behavior.
Voters fed up with rising homelessness.
Clear them out.
The push to ship out, arrest, and get homeless people out of sight is gaining alarming support across the U.S.
Criminalizing sleeping in public spaces.
And in the coming months, protections against criminalization may be overturned in the Supreme Court.
Do I protect myself from the elements and risk going to jail, or do I not and risk hypothermia and dying?
So is it cruel and unusual punishment? The Supreme Court will tackle that question.
At the center is a small town in Oregon.
Grants Pass.
Invisible People founder Mark Horvath investigates what's really going on in Grants Pass right now.
We get a ticket just for trying to live.
30 citations in a year and a half.
I've been to jail 5 times just this year.
So this park is probably the most controversial.
They hit me with a stick. They wanted to drag them out and beat them.
Families out here sleeping in tents.
because this ruling will determine whether cities can arrest homeless people across the country.
If that's allowed, many cities will try to run all of the homeless people out of their community.
The stakes can be higher.
We will ban urban camping. Violators of these bans will be arrested. We will then open up large parcels of inexpensive land where the homeless can be relocated.
Rather than addressing the structural inequities causing homelessness, many politicians from both parties and at all levels ignore proven solutions to homelessness, opting instead for a punitive response that will only make homelessness worse and hurt all of us. Criminalization punishes the one group of people who have no power to fix the crisis.
The GPPD had my stuff thrown away, and in one of my totes was my son's urn. My son's forever gone, and I only have a piece of him, an urn necklace that I keep dear to my heart. You know, like, that's things I can't get back. It makes it really hard to want to keep going on. All I can say to people is, don't forget what it is to be human. Be kind. We're all just trying to survive.
If your issue is that Black Lives Matter, if you care about the experience of LGBTQ people, if you care about people living with disabilities, if you care about the elderly, all of these traditionally marginalized communities are going to be impacted. If those are your issues, this is your issue.
So let's stop right there for a second, because he actually talks about different groups, right? Different marginalized groups that are affected by homelessness. You cannot have a liberation. You cannot have a truly free country if the barriers to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are paywall. I said what I said. Which means that things like housing, healthcare, education, food, healthy food, clean water, and a sustainable environment have to be, yes, given. I'm saying it. It has to be given because you are a human being. Because if you think that it can't, and people will say, well, you can't just, nothing's for free. No shit, Sherlock. But yet we can give roads and bridges for free, right? You can ride on these roads and bridges, right? And what do you do in order to have those roads and bridges? You pay what? Taxes, meaning that we actually pull our resources together and then we share among the community, right? We can have fire service whenever our fire alarm goes off and the fire department comes to take out the fire in our houses. We can go to the library and see librarians and check out books, right? Without having to pay a fee in order to be able to read and get educated, or even to entertain ourselves. You can order board games. You can get movies. You can get all these things at a local library. So if we can do these things, can we do healthcare? Can we do housing? Education? I'd rather my money go to housing people than to bombing little brown children abroad. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't that be nice? Let's continue. Just to go over a couple things in this video.
We knew we had to go where it all started, and with the boots on the ground, we met up with co-founder of Mint, the mobile integrative navigation team, who does outreach and bridges the gap for the houseless in Josephine County.
Good morning, sunshine. Did you take your medicine?
Water.
Do you need water? I'll grab you some water, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Homelessness in Grants Pass. We're seeing new people each week out here. A lot of elderly who are being forced out of their home, foreclosures, etc. A lot of them have been out here for a long time. There are people out here.
Oh, a lot of elderly. A lot of boomers. Remember when I talked about that last year? About how the homeless rate is jumping among the boomers? They're being foreclosed on their homes. Anybody else talk about that? How elderly people, their retirement savings are running out. Your retirement savings are supposed to last until you die, until you naturally pass on. But their retirement savings are running out because they didn't account for the spike in inflation that has been caused by the owner class. It's not something just naturally occurring because it's free markets. No. It is corporate price gouging that has caused them to lose their homes. This is what's happening. And a lot of people don't talk about it, but a lot of elderly people are literally becoming homeless. Mama and daddy, they ain't got a home no more. Why? Because the taxes were too high, or they had to take out a second mortgage, or they got disabled.
Here being ticketed to move their tent site when the city hasn't given them an alternative solution to be able to be that safe. There are no affordable housing or low barrier shelters, and rent keeps going up and up. And so we're seeing more and more folks having to live in the parks or in parking lots with their cars. That's where the city's kind of designated places for them right now.
But even in these designated areas, they must move to a new park every 3 or 5 days. And even then, once they settle back in, they're often still not left in peace.
The cops give us tickets for any reason they can find. Scattering rubbish, being in the buffer zone, tent being too big, like you name it, I've gotten a ticket for it. I got my notice this morning. I have to move. Having to move every week is ridiculous in itself, that you have to pack up your whole camp, everything, your food, your clothes, your bedding, and it doesn't matter if it's raining, snowing, whatever, we have to move. If we're there when we're supposed to be moved, we get a ticket for being there. It's hell to move from park to park. It seems like every single time you get to your tent or get your camp set up and start getting things livable again, it's time to move again. They have made it impossible to feel human just because we're homeless. Like, we're not supposed to exist. We get a ticket just for trying to live.
Where are you staying at?
Right over here. This is the home for the week. Here at what we call Tent City. I'm hoping that my 30-day kickout is going to be over so I can go to the park down the street, because it's easier to move a few blocks than it is like clear across town, you know. My bike trailer and wagon have flat tires and I can't afford tubes. So that it makes it difficult to move for sure. I have food stamps, but that don't give us enough to last a month, especially when we can't cook food. We have to go buy things we can heat in the microwave at the store. I do what I can.
This is another variable, right? So, number one, a lot of these states do not give enough in food stamps. Trust me, I know, I get food stamps. They don't give us enough. And for somebody that's unhoused, you need food to survive. You cannot live without food. And so some of them do get food stamps, but isn't it easier? Isn't it cheaper to cook your own food? But what if you can't cook because you're in a tent? And never mind that a lot of the city ordinances, you can't have any type of cooking elements while in an urban area camping. You can't. That's illegal, because they will take you to jail for that, because there's a fire hazard. So what do they have to eat? They got to eat canned stuff, perishable stuff that's not the most healthy, that's full of preservatives and chemicals. So they're already not eating healthy because they can't afford it. They got to get stuff that doesn't spoil so easily. Also, remember, some of these people who are unhoused are also disabled. So some of them also have dietary restrictions, which means that they can only spend so much on food, which means that if they go to, say, Coalition for the Homeless or another type of not Coalition for the Homeless, but if they go to a food bank or something like that, they have to get what the food bank gives them. They can't pick or choose because, right, you know what they say, beggars can't be choosers, right? So they have to, take what they give, what they can get. And what if this person has celiac disease? What if this person is diabetic? Or what if they have texture limitations, meaning that maybe they might be missing teeth or have very sensitive teeth or teeth that's easy to break, and they have to eat different types of foods? What if they have no teeth? What if they have dentures? Do you see some of the variables? And so they're unable to eat healthy like they really want to because they can't cook. They can't even have hot food. Food stamps here in Florida, this is one of the most messed up things here in Florida. You can't get hot food on food stamps. So let's say I go to a Publix, right? And they have hot meals right there ready for you to eat in Publix that they prepared. I can't go in there and get a hot meal of maybe some chicken tenders, maybe some green beans, some mashed potatoes, some corn. I can't get that. But I also, in that same store, can go to the deli and get a cold cut sub with those same food stamps. Make that make sense. Make that make sense. I can get cold, or if they fried chicken the day before, but then they're selling it cold in the cold section, I can get that fried chicken with food stamps. So this is the war on homelessness, on poverty that goes on within our country. And then on top of that, for those of us who are disabled, every single time we get a cost of living increase, which we just did, guess what? Our food stamps go down because they don't want us to live life high on the hog, right? Off the money of the state, even though they're getting millions of dollars of subsidies and tax breaks to the billionaires and millionaires. Billionaires like Donald Trump, because yes, his residence is here in Florida. That's homelessness.
Make the best of it.
Amber has received over 30 citations in a year and a half. Each one is $295. She has no way of paying them. I can't imagine any community having a response to homelessness, just pushing people from park to park. It makes no sense. The only solution to tents in a park is housing. Criminalization will just make these encampments grow. More people will end up in the park.
And we wondered, where is this push for criminalization coming from? So we asked an expert from the National Homelessness Law Center.
Our organization has been tracking the criminalization of homelessness for the past 20 years. We found these ordinances have been growing as visible homelessness continues to expand in our communities. So Grants Pass, like much of America, is experiencing a homelessness crisis caused by the lack of affordable housing. Since the early 2000s, Grants Pass has more than doubled in size, but it hasn't doubled its affordable housing stock. The vacancy rate is less than 1%, meaning if you lose your apartment, it's basically impossible to find a new one. As landlords.
So, that's one of the biggest issues, right? Is now on top of it, the apartments within our area are too expensive to move into. On top of that, you got to remember, if you don't have an ID, you can't get an apartment. If you don't have a social security number, you can't get an apartment. If your credit is below a certain level, you can't get an apartment. If you have a criminal record, you can't get an apartment. Right? So those are just some of the barriers. If you don't have an income, because you got to be able to show your pay stubs or show your bank statements to show that you get a regular paycheck, because you got to make 3 times the rent in order to be able to get an apartment. So all these different things, like you can have all the things that you can have, but if your credit's not good, then you still can't get an apartment. These are the barriers. And so what's next? Shelter? There's barriers to that too. I'm going to share that with you guys too, because I want people to go, well, because people go, well, why don't you just go to shelter? Just go to a shelter. Well, there's some things with that too. Let's go to this part.
Yeah, there's places that if you are a Christian and if you're not under the influence of anything at all,
Right.
They'll test you for a cigarette.
We do have one shelter gospel.
Okay, so first of all, let's go there. First of all, you have to be Christian. Not everybody is religious. And to the people who may be religious, not everybody is Christian. And even some Christian denominations don't worship the same way. So a Presbyterian doesn't worship the same as a Baptist, and a Baptist doesn't worship the same as a Catholic, and a Catholic doesn't worship exactly the same as a Jehovah's Witness. And a Jehovah's Witness doesn't worship the same as a Mormon. And what if you say, I'm just spiritual? I don't like organized religion. But now they're forcing you into an organized religion in order to be able to stay someplace. On top of that, you can't have a substance abuse. But here's the problem, and this is a raw truth. Do you know that a lot of homeless people, a lot of unhoused people, they actually get addicted to drugs after becoming homeless? Why? Because they're homeless. You know, some substances, I can't be specific, but some substances keep you awake so that you don't fall asleep, so that people don't steal your stuff, so that you are safe, because there are people who may try to SA you, try to sexually assault you, especially if you're a female. It happens if you're a male too. So that on top of dealing with the trauma as well as the thing, oh my God, it's horrible. So this is part of it. Let me continue this because I really want to hammer this home, because people think that shelters are a solution. They're not, because they gatekeep in many different ways as well.
Rescue mission, but it would be high barrier, and a lot of the people that we serve don't really meet the criteria to be admitted there or deny wanting to go there.
It's like being in jail. You can't talk to anybody, you can't leave, and it's being locked up in there doing nothing but chores and pray to the Lord. And you can't have your animals. There's a lot of people that have dogs, and it's comfort zone for them. Same with my cat.
You would go into a shelter or housing if there was, provided dignity and you could take your cat.
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
One newspaper article said there's 27 rules for the gospel rescue.
For example, I had a family that was new to being out here, 2 young kids, mom and dad. Mom and kids had to go separately. Dad had to go to another place, and they couldn't see each other for 30 days. No smoking, no dogs, no drugs whatsoever. They also have to be physically able to work. So if they have a disability that prevents them from being able to work, then they aren't qualified to go to the shelter.
So you can't even be disabled. A huge chunk of people who are homeless are actually disabled. And you heard what he said, that a family with a father, the father can't stay with the family. I'm gonna tell you guys a little story about my family. So when we moved down here to Florida back in 1987, yes, I am that old. We were living with a friend, her and her daughter. Soon after, a few months of us living with her, she ups and leaves and moved back up to Jersey. Just ups and leaves. Where did that leave my mom and 3 boys? Well, my mother had to be homeless with her 3 sons. She had a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 12-year-old. So with that being said, by the time we got into a shelter, they told my mother that because my oldest brother was between the ages of 12 and 13, he couldn't stay with us. They wanted him to go into the men's shelter by himself. 12, 13-year-old boy having to stay in a men's shelter by himself? These are the barriers. These are the barriers that they will place in front of you if you're homeless. And so this is why I talk about these things, because number one, lived experience, but number two, this shouldn't be. So I can't show this entire thing, because the reason being is because it's too long, and this stream will be like 4 hours long if I completely react to this. But this is some of the things that a lot of people do not consider. But I want you to consider this while I'm sharing this with you, because when it comes to homelessness, this is what happens. And so there's one more thing that I want to share. I want to share in regards to this homelessness. Let me see. And I want to make this point too. So let me share this.
Parks and on a path out of homelessness.
So we started with apartments. We have some group housing. We have low barrier.
Oh, sorry. I went back a little too far. Okay. Let's go 1720.
So that speaks to the desire to be indoors.
We are in Medford, a neighboring city right next to Grants Pass. Medford has partnered with nonprofits to create solutions to get people out of the parks. And
so here's the thing, he mentions nonprofits, right? And I have something to say about nonprofits. Now, what I'm going to say about nonprofits, and this is not indicative of all nonprofits, but the nonprofit industrial complex uses the plight of homeless people to make more money to serve themselves. Why? Because if homelessness ends, so does their organization. Let me share this right here, because this also is important, because there's always somebody who needs to benefit from the plight of others. Let's get into it. Thank you to James Lee. Says homelessness keeps going up because the people being tasked with serving it don't have any incentive to do so. Solving it don't have any incentive to do so. Case in point, the LA Homeless Services Authority has a payroll of over $62 million in 2023, with 165 quote unquote public administrators making a 6-figure salary. $62 million payroll. Look. And so to end homelessness would end their jobs. What incentive do they have to end homelessness? See, this is why the nonprofit industrial complex also, we got to yoke them up too. This is why we talk about mutual aid. Because mutual aid doesn't place barriers in front of a person in order to receive help. However, charities, which is part of the nonprofit industrial complex, oh, they do. And they means test. So this is another variable, right? Remember when I think somebody was talking about, I think it was the Red Cross. Was it the Red Cross in Lahaina, where they built like 6 houses with like $5 million? It's like, where did all that money go? I thought you were supposed to be building houses for the unhoused. It's a money laundering scheme. I'm not saying this about all nonprofits, but there are some who are tasked with making it look like they're doing something altruistic, but they're still feeding the system so that they can still be fed. They're still parasitic on the system. They're still parasitic on the society so that they can feed off of it, so that they can get your donations and say, oh, we're helping the homeless. But really, a lot of the people in the upper parts of these organizations are making 6-figure salaries. And they're going to their homes being warm at night. And how many people are actually being helped? Meanwhile, next week, we got a polar vortex that's coming down here. And I think the high in Orlando, Florida is going to be somewhere around 37 degrees. In Orlando, Florida. So that's another variable that a lot of people don't think about, is the nonprofit industrial complex. Here's the truth. Homelessness is a tool used by the owner class to keep workers in line so that they keep because they accept their exploitation. This also gives corporations the stock of slave labor that they can use to make arrests to manufacture goods and services in this country. Remember, just because it says made in America, it doesn't mean it was made by free workers. Cotton shirts were made in America as well in the 1700s, but we all know how we got that cotton, don't we? The 13th Amendment still allows for slavery as parts of punishment for a crime. But what if you make sleeping in tents in urban areas a crime? What if you make sleeping on the sidewalk a crime? This is a modern day vagrancy law. Let's take a look at vagrancy, shall we? If you don't know what it is, we're about to tell you.
Vagrancy law.
That's all right.
All unemployed people should be in jail. That's what vagrancy laws were. After the Civil War, a black man could be incarcerated for the fake crime of vagrancy with no hope of defending himself against a white jury or a white judge. The fees imposed were so great that the black person couldn't have paid it off with a year's worth of work. So that person was convicted, that convict was then leased to other companies, and those companies would pay the fees of that particular convict. The problem? Most of those people never lived long enough to pay off their debt.
I want to tell you guys something. One of the biggest demographics I actually see whenever I do mutual aid, especially in my area in Orlando, is Black men that are unhoused, that are homeless. Black men. And most of them are not immigrants. They're Black American men. American descendants of slavery. The video that I showed at the outset was a lot of white people. When I say if they do it to us, they're going to do it to you, guess what? It's already happening to y'all too. This is why the system needs to end. When we say Black people are the canary in the coal mine, now you know. Because the vagrancy laws were applied to people that look like me, to my ancestors. And now the vagrancy laws are now being applied to white people. This is why we also have to walk away from anti-Blackness. We have to walk away from xenophobia. We got to walk away from queerphobia. We got to walk away from all these things and actually have solidarity with the people who are out in these streets who are literally trying to survive. You actually have more in common with somebody who is out here in these streets in these tents than you do with an Elon Musk, a Harlan Crow, or a Jeff Bezos. You have way more in common with them. And yet we're going to look down our nose at them. And for me to feel fear that the driver was going to get mad at me for rolling down my window and put a couple bucks outside the window and be like, here you go, bro. And by the way, the homeless man that I should have given some money to when I had the opportunity to, he was a Black man. Looked like he was old enough to be my own father. And out of fear, I said, oh, I don't know. I don't want to make him mad. I don't want to get the driver mad, you know, blah, blah, blah. I'm a client. Who cares? If he gets mad, then don't pick me up no more. Shit. That man's unhoused. And you don't even want to acknowledge his presence? You just want to pull forward? Allowing the system to devoid you of your humanity just because of a circumstance that you may not even know, or you think that, oh, I got it out. I got out of it. Not everybody's built the same. And that's okay too. People have different experiences. Some people are good at certain things and some people are not good at certain things. One more thing I want to share, because I don't want to go too, I went long enough on this, but you got to humanize the marginalized people in order to be able to have compassion. You have to humanize them. I want to share this. This is out of ProPublica. This article says, I have lost everything. Interviews by Asia Fields, Nicole Santa Cruz, Ruth Talbot, and Myra Miller, design and development. So let's share. It says a record number of Americans are living outside. Cities have responded by removing encampments from public spaces, a practice commonly referred to as sweeps. And the process, workers are often taking people's belongings, including important documents, survival gear, and irreplaceable mementos. Over and over, people across this country told ProPublica that they were devastated by such losses. We gave them note cards so that they could explain in their own words how the sweeps had affected them. So here's some of their stories. This is some of the stories that they wrote. So, it says, what is something that is important to you that was taken during the sweep? How has this impacted you? This is from Teresa. Her age is 61 years old. She says, my husband's ashes. It made me feel, it made me feel alone and scared, empty. Now I wonder where he is and if he's all still in his urn and if he's okay. And I hope he's not in the dump. That hurts, man. That hurts. Another one. This is from Adam. He said, my prescription glasses were taken. I have been getting headaches. My CD players, phones, personal paperwork had no time replacing it. Also, jewelry was taken, food, clothes. This has affected me because they just come and throw our stuff away and they just don't care, like it was nothing to them. Thank you. Another one. Mario says, my tools, because I use them to make a living. Not to mention some of those tools were given to me by my father. And they made me feel close to my dad that is now gone because he passed away. But what really sucks is I used them to make a living so I could eat and buy what I need. What are people constantly telling homeless people? Get a job. Did you know that between 40 and 60% of unhoused people are employed? They have jobs. Just because they're homeless doesn't mean they're unemployed. Two more. Kyra says, updated pictures of my daughter and the only number to reach her at. I've been coping by not continuing my housing. I have nothing to get off the streets to. Elijah says, birth certificate, passport, UPS storage keys, money, ID, social security card. Set my progress to saving for a place back months. Do you know how hard it is to get your birth certificate? You got to literally get in touch with the vital statistics, and then you got to pay a fee in order to get your birth certificate. And then you have to take that birth certificate to go get your social security card. And then once you get your social security card, then you can go get your ID or license, which also is another fee. Because you can't get a job without these things. You can't get housing without these things. You can't get assistance without these things. And when the police come and then they take your belongings and throw them away, then what? This is why we got to humanize these people and see ourselves in them, because if we don't, then we won't change the system. A lot of people are struggling more than you know. Some people are living in their cars and you wouldn't know it until you paid attention. Some people working at places like the happiest place on earth, Walt Disney World. This country is cooked. It's either going to go two ways. One, it's either going to be a fascist revolution that will place corporations in more power than they already have, or two, a socialist revolution that will rip the power from the corporations and put it in the hands of the workers. I'm working for the latter. So this is why we talk about doing mutual aid and working in order to build dual powers so that we can help our neighbors who are the most vulnerable so that they can live and actually thrive. Because guess what? Some of these people, they can catch hypothermia, they can catch heat stroke, and they can die. And the thing is like, are we looking forward to that? Who are we? They're human beings. That should be just enough. I hope you connect with your humanity too. So then this never happens to you. So that we can have a system where it never happens. Let's take care of our fellow human beings, shall we? Thank you very much. Give a like to the stream. Appreciate all of the likes so far. Let's go into the chats. I'm going to check the Rumble chat, see if I have any Rumble rants. And then we'll go into the Rockfin chat, and then we'll go into the YouTube chat. All right, we're good on the Rumble side. Let's go into the Rockfin side. Gar says, I heard they were good for you. Sorry for being a wet blanket. You're not a wet blanket. And wasabi, yes, wasabi definitely does clear the sinuses. Jay, please place that homelessness link here. I just saw Santa Claus on Jimmy Dore show when you're releasing that clip to your interview with Mr. You're talking about Keith McHenry, the guy from The Lancet says half science is fake. All right. Thank you very much for that. Thank you for that, Hemp Car. Dave Burt says, I think people ought to get serious about fighting in the streets on the homelessness issue. People should be completely disdainful towards the government. People got to fight and break the law, of course, on the housing issue. Hemp Car says, first they came for the homeless. That's a good one, Hemp Car. Dave Burt says, when they clear homeless encampments, I go for my brass knuckles, etc., etc. I have to be very careful about what I read on here. Thank you very much, Dave Burt. He says Manchester, New Hampshire in late 2021, I think it was, Pacific Northwest. A bunch of camps got knocked out. People's stuff got stolen or destroyed in 2021. Big camps in Washington and Oregon destroyed that came from New Hampshire, New York City in late 2021 and 2022. Said people got organized to move, although the cops kicked some people around and there was no reason in Manchester to move the camp. See, it was weird. Basically, in New York City, I heard about people getting beaten and taken to jail, dumped in the tombs, who had done no crime other than be in a tent. Some had wounds from the cops and spent 4 to 7 days in jail or more. He said it has to be a line in the sand. I can see your anger, Dave. Yeah, I feel the same anger. MREs are expensive. I can only get those online, but yeah. Get you a hot meal, yeah. Hemp Car says philanthropy is CIA. Church committee approved that. See the proof on my website on Icon. Yeah. Roger Meadows says, JB, next time you speak to Larry, tell him Florida busts his libertarian bubble. That if you eliminate taxes, in this case, state income taxes, you'll have more money. I agree with him that the solution can't be just throw more money at the problem. He says instead, get government out of the way and let communities handle it. Mutual aid, glad he didn't say corporate. I say yes, throw money at the problem, but watch who you throw it to. Reason, public-private, aka government-corporate partnership is the problem because permanent solutions are bad for business. More money made treating the symptoms rather than solving the problem. So yes, that's actually also I think is important too. When I mean throwing money at the problem, I mean throwing it at the source of the problem, not treating the symptoms. So I should have clarified. But thank you very much for that, Roger. But yeah, I don't believe in a public-private partnership when it comes to your basic necessities like that. I believe that it should be out of the, money should not be in politics, and it should be a universal thing for the people affected. So that's what I think it should be. Let's continue. Thank you very much for this, Hemkari says. So the BBC reported that Pfizer used orphans in the Bronx. Ooh, I don't know if I can read that. Children as guinea pigs in 2004 can watch 10 minutes on 2 times speed. Very crazy. Yeah, I don't know if I can read that, Hepcar, because I got to be very careful. But thank you very much. I'm sorry. I know you gave me a tip on Rockfin for that, but I got to be very careful on YouTube. Roger says public banks are not just good for infrastructure, water, broadband, transportation, power grid, but for building housing as well. So yeah. Thank you very much for all those on Rockfin, guys. Appreciate it. Now, let's go to the chat here. And a 1 and a 2 says, I'm homeless. I have a small business sitting in a storage unit because I have no place to run the business, and I was turned down for 4 low-income housing units because of having no job in a shelter now. I'm sorry. A 1 and a 2. Do you have like a Cash App or GoFundMe or something like that that I can share so that people can give you some assistance? I know I'm demonetized, but maybe people can, you know, send that money they would send my way. They can send it to you on a 1 and a 2. If you do, just put it in the link. You can't necessarily put the link in the chat, but here's what you do. You copy it and then you paste it. Before you send it in the chat, put a space between the dot and the comma, the period and the comma, and then send it. And then what I can do is I'll just share it, and then people can copy it. And then I don't know if they can copy it, but they can type it in or whatever. And then they can actually go to a link and put the dot and the comma together. And then they can go there and then donate if they need to. But thank you very much for letting us know that your situation, that it takes a lot to let people know that. Yes, Mouse said Elon Musk can end homelessness for what he spent on Twitter. Actually, he could end homelessness for half the price because he spent $44 billion to buy Twitter. It only costs about $20 billion to end homelessness. So he could have ended homelessness twice with the price that he paid for Twitter. Black Ronin, I concede to this point. He says it's not a war on poverty, it's a war on the impoverished. Yes, you are correct. Absolutely. Teresa said they should have never discontinued the extra SNAP benefits that help people out and earn income credit. Yes. Like when the Democrats said that we cut child poverty in half. It's like, yeah, for a few months, and then you let that expire. And you're not even working to do it again or to make sure that you guys end child poverty. Eric Gray says, so she has a total of $8,850 worth of citations and somehow expected to pay that money somehow. And if she gets a job, guess where that money's going? Because those checks are going to be what? Garnished. And then can she actually afford an apartment? Edward says shelters are dangerous to live in. That's why people would rather be on the streets than be in a shelter. Unfortunately, stuff happens in shelters too. And 1 and 2 says health problem took 5 years to diagnose due to our crappy healthcare system. I ran out of money because I'm sick, and that's why I'm homeless. And that's another variable. I didn't get to share this during the segment, but I think that this is important as well. This says priced out the affordable housing crisis for people with disabilities. Says since 2007, TAC and the Consortium for Constituents with Disabilities have joined, produced, Priced Out, a regularly updated report on housing affordability crisis for people with disabilities rely on supplemental security income, SSI. The latest data from several federal sources compiled in the end of 2023, it is unfortunately clear that yet again, the 4.1 million people with disabilities ages 18 to 64 who receive SSI cannot afford an apartment in any housing market in the United States without additional support, because there is neither enough affordable housing nor sufficient access to rental assistance. Many of these people find themselves homeless, at ongoing risk of homelessness, living in segregated institutions or incarcerated. So disability homelessness says 84% of disabled people with low incomes in the United States, nearly 18 million people and 15.6 million households are eligible for housing assistance but do not receive it. It says 31% of all homeless individuals experience chronic homelessness and have a disability, disabling condition. 65% of these individuals are unsheltered or in unsheltered locations. 30% of homeless individual veterans experience chronic patterns of homelessness with a disabling condition. 66% of incarcerated people self-report a disability, with Black, Hispanic, and multiracial disabled men especially overrepresented in prisons. More than 83% of people in the state and federal prisons report previously residing in another institution, such as other correctional settings or psychiatric hospitals. National research suggests that up to 15% of incarcerated people experience homelessness in a year before the incarceration. SSI is not enough. Many other people in these problematic situations are likely eligible for SSI as a result of their disability. However, as priced out reports makes clear, this income is not high enough to bring any measure of housing security. Our data compilation shows that Santa Cruz, Watsonville housing market in California has the highest ratio of one-bedroom fair market rent to SSI. And these two counties rent for the modest one-bedroom cost 142% of a person's entire SSI income. Even in Dallas County, Missouri, the county with the lowest rent to SSI ratio, people with disability pay 64% of their income for a one-bedroom unit. So here's my thing. A lot of times people go, well, we just need more affordable housing. Affordable. And here's my issue with that, right? Because if you give more affordable housing, affordability is a subjective thing. What may be affordable to you may not be affordable to me. What may be affordable in one state may not be affordable in another state, or city to city, right? County to county. The thing is that the problem is that we commodify housing, period. If you didn't commodify housing, if you literally just make it so that if you give public housing to people who don't have housing, then they have a stable place to be. Also, they're not becoming sick or having to deal with addictions and constantly going to the emergency room in order to treat these things or just to have a place to sleep. Driving up healthcare costs. It's literally healthier, not just on an individual level, but it's healthier on a societal level to house people. And yet, we don't do it. Truth, landlords do not provide housing. Landlords are housing scalpers. They take what's already there, they hoard it, and then they raise the price. That's all landlords do. This is why landlords should not exist. And we have 16 million vacant homes in this country. 16 million. And you mean the 770,000 people that we have on the streets, not counting the people who are sleeping on couches right now, we can't put them in housing? Oh, because they have to have jobs, where 40 to 60% of them actually do have jobs too? It's crazy. It's ridiculous on his head. Yeah, Roger, Florida does get cold. We're going to get a polar vortex next week. Yeah, Chrissy says the sickening part about this whole thing is that there's homeless people with employment. The University of Chicago study discusses this from 2021. Yeah, Kate Mack says you need an address to send all your paperwork to. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's sad. All right, so I have to move on because of the sake of time. I'm looking for see something. Okay. All right, so first of all, one of the things we're going to do before we move on, we're going to thank the patrons. So I want to do that. Give the patrons a big shout out because without you guys, I would not be able to do this work. You guys make this absolutely possible. And I just want to give a big shout out and thank you to all of you. So here are the tiers. So we have Mega Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Jaybefaunters, Comrade, Solidarity, and JB members and new members. I would like to thank for your contributions. And this year of our Lord 2024, we have Charlie Mack and Krista Brackley. Thank you so very much. Without you guys, I would not be able to do this. So you guys make this possible. So just to let you guys know as well that my channel is demonetized. So if you like to support the channel, you can support via Patreon or PayPal. So thank you for that. Okay, so let's move on to our next story. This is going to be an interesting one. I got some notes for this one. And yeah, we're going to talk about moving out and going really to the countryside. Because we're tired of working in these offices. We're tired of these being in these streets. Ending the remote work battle. So this is going to be one that we are going to be talking about. And shout out to Roger Meadows for this one, because I think we need to talk about really what's good for the workers instead of what's good for the corporations. Look, you know, what Luigi did has got a lot of people thinking about, well, what's good for us? Not what's good for the shareholders. And we need to talk about it. It's a conversation that goes beyond healthcare. It's a conversation that's going to egalitarianism. In an office, a center of mundane tasks, mediocre coffee, inspirational posters, tight quotas, office politics, annoying gossip, and micromanaging bosses. If you could leave and work from home, would you? Make sure to take the poll. This is what the pandemic gave us. It gave us a gift to escape the issues surrounding being at the office. It afforded us more time to get ready for the morning, less money to pay on gas and travel, less wear and tear on your car. You had to pay less for childcare, eating out for lunch, You actually even save money on laundry because you didn't have to wash your work attire. Plus, you got more time to spend with your family and less interpersonal stress from dealing with workmates. But corporations are wanting workers back in the office. Why? Well, let me show you. Now, this tweet is no longer on Twitter, but I got the screenshot and I just want to share this. So at the height, I remember this tweet got over 250,000 likes because it's true. Let's enlarge. It says, casual reminder that a huge reason that they don't want you to work from home anymore is because in terms of capitalism, it makes dozens of skyscrapers and office buildings they built obsolete, impractical, unprofitable, and generally a bad financial investment. Like, seriously, imagine what a city like New York City or LA, Los Angeles, places that are practically designed around a vast quantity of these sort of buildings would look like if everyone who could work from home did. I want you to think about that. Because that's why they want you back in the office. There's a little bit more detail about that. So let me share this video about going back into the office, right? And this is a video that is entitled Why Companies Hate Work from Home. Let me fast forward a little bit to the primary reason. Hang on, let me make sure. All right.
Now, let's get to the real reason. Let me tell y'all, okay, you've waited however many minutes this video is going. Let me tell you the real reason. It's the tax deductions, baby. Y'all know Noelle Randall is a real estate entrepreneur. I absolutely love real estate. Things that have to do with real estate excite me. But one of the reasons why real estate is exciting for so many people is because of the tax deductions. Well, many of these companies have received numerous and big tax deductions for the real estate that they have and having those employees come into those offices. Okay. There's the leases on commercial properties. Think about that. They have those leases and they want to continue to get those leases. That is important for not only the company, but the company, those commercial companies that own that real estate, the property management companies that run that commercial real estate. That's revenue for them. So you get local, county, state, and even federal tax deductions for having a company with employees that are in the office and how many people go to the office. That is super important. And I'm going to actually share with you a real example that I saw with my own two eyes. I was working for a company called Movement Mortgage, and this was, I think, one of the last jobs that I had where I was gaining my confidence. Like, I'm going to get out of the workforce, but I really wasn't ready. I was still kind of a chicken. And that was really because, just my mindset. I just really wasn't all the way there. This is 2015, 2016. So, but Movement Mortgage was actually based out of Norfolk, Virginia. And so when I first went to work there, we were working in this kind of old office that, was in Norfolk. But guess what? They actually, I'm not even going to get into all of it. It may have even been for Virginia Beach, but the city of Norfolk actually gave Movement Mortgage. And again, this is public records. I don't feel like I'm sharing anything, crazy. The city of Norfolk gave them a ton of money to take a rundown JCPenney in the mall, in the Norfolk Mall. And again, you can look this up, for Movement Mortgage to bring all of their operations there from the Virginia Beach office. And it was an amazing office. It was beautiful. They completely renovated an old JCPenney that had went out of business. And we literally worked at the mall. Okay, the mall was like half empty. This is Norfolk, Virginia. And this was, again, Norfolk, Virginia's Economic Development Department. Okay, so there's tons of economic development departments within counties and cities and local governments that are working to bring employers to their area, and they give them really great subsidies. They give them tax benefits. They even sometimes give them outright money, okay, to renovate and things like that. So I'm not
Sorry. So here's the thing. Let me stop right there. They're giving tax breaks, subsidies, and outright money to some of these businesses that are already making money. They're already doing all right, right? And yet, in some of these cities, we still have a homeless problem. We still have some issues, with housing. Some of these schools aren't doing too good. They're dilapidated buildings, and kids aren't getting the education that they need because of funding from property taxes. But yet, some of these companies that are actually doing really well, they're getting tax subsidies instead of the people who are on the lower rung of the economic ladder. They're not getting a damn thing, or they're getting very little. But yet these companies, these corporations get these tax subsidies and tax breaks, even though they're doing well. Y'all already know where I want to go with this one. Okay, let's continue.
I'm going to give you all of the details because I don't necessarily know all the details of Movement Mortgage's move, but I'm going to tell you unequivocally, it was really beneficial to Movement Mortgage to be able to move to that. And it was very beneficial to the city of Norfolk to have all of those employees. And again, at the time, I was one of them, to go there, and we start going to restaurants for lunch. We start getting gas in that area. We start coming in that area. We're buying things. We're shopping during our lunch. There's a lot of economic activity that happens when you bring employees into an office. So although you as a worker say, I don't want to work in an office, let me be 100% honest with you. As the employer, that's a really, really big incentive to make your employees come to the office. The fact that you can get this real estate and you get these tax deductions for having employees in your office. So now, as a company, they have to weigh out, do I want these tax benefits and these subsidies and these different incentives that I'm being offered by local governments and state governments? Or do I just want to make my employees happy? Or do I want to just try to make them happy at the office? Well, in this case, we know that corporate interest has won out, and all of your bigger corporations are saying, get your butts back to the office. We need you in these offices. We need these spaces filled. We need the economic activity that is caused by people going into the office. That is a really, really big deal. And you're going to see this. You're going to see more and more of them pushing people back into offices because there is a multiplier effect. So again, when you work in that office, not only do you have to drive in the commute, you're spending more money on gas, but now that you're at that workplace, you are an economic, you are a catalyst to growth in that area. You go to the lunches, you go to those restaurants, you go shopping during your lunch, you're buying things, you have daycare in the area. Just think of all of the different multiplier effects that happens from one employee going into the office. So then just multiply that by thousands, and how much economic activity is generated to the other businesses around that office. That is the real reason why companies hate work from home and why they want you back in their office. So let me talk to you.
When she says the word catalyst, change the word to consumer. They want you to consume in that given area. That's what it is. Make no mistake. They want you to continue to consume. That's why they want you back in the office. In the end, it's about capitalists wanting more money so that your interests don't really matter as long as the shareholders get more in their dividend checks. You're not necessarily getting paid more to come into the office, but the owner class does. This is a part of the class war. But corporations are winning at the workers' expense. In New York City, the drivers are getting a congestion surcharge of $9 if they're in Manhattan between the hours of 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. How will this harm workers? Let's look at the article. So it's crazy. It's crazy out in these streets. They're trying to charge. All right, let's take a look at this article. It says Manhattan prepares for congestion pricing housing charges in 2025. So now it's 2025. Told you it's going to be live. All right. It says Manhattan is poised for a busy 2025, from the rollout of congestion pricing to the reopening of iconic cultural landmarks and changes in real estate. And starting January 5th, which is this Sunday, drivers entering Manhattan below 60th Street will face a congestion toll of at least $9 during most of the day, marking the start of New York's long-anticipated congestion pricing program. So this is from Mark Levin. Honestly, crossing Midtown at rush hour is not much faster than walking speed. He expressed hopes that the program will bring reduced traffic, faster emergency responses, and increased funding for mass transit projects, particularly the subway system. It is why you see such frequent delays in the system, which is a current lack of funding. Some business owners, however, worry that the toll will lead to higher delivery costs, which could be passed along to customers. Levin also highlighted the borough's housing affordability crisis as a top concern. Says that the rents in Manhattan are totally out of reach. Median rents in Manhattan hit $4,295 in October of 2024, representing a 20% increase since January 2021. So this is something that is happening within the city of New York, that they are trying to increase by, if you're riding between 60th Street in Manhattan, in Midtown, then you're going to be paying $9 just for congestion pricing. So when they're telling you to come back to the office, guess what you're going to also have to pay? Especially in places like New York. And guess what? What goes in New York, it starts to happen in other cities. So don't be surprised if this starts happening in places like Boston, Chicago, Seattle, LA, and then it starts to go into the medium-sized cities, right? Starts happening in Dallas, in New Orleans. Starts happening in places like Cleveland, Orlando, Tampa. It's gonna hit. But there are some people who are fighting against it. And I want to share that too. So this came out a day later. So let's get into this. It says the controversial congestion pricing toll appeared ready to take effect as scheduled on January 5th after two different federal district court judges on December 23rd refused to issue preliminary injunctions blocking it. But after encountering backlash, Governor Kathy Hochul is ditching the plan that would have allowed the MTA to hike the $9 toll by 25% to $11.25 on days dubbed gridlock alert days. There were 20 such days on the calendar in the current year. Hochul says that under no circumstances would she allow the toll to be hiked, even through the MTA. In a little noticed part of the plan, she retained the right to do so. The New York Post has played up the overlook clause in the congestion pricing plan with a page 1 story on December 26th, triggering an immediate and furious backlash. Kathy Hochul is the Grinch who stole Christmas. That's from Mike Lauer, a Republican from the Hudson Valley region who just reelected to a second term. It says, despite Hochul switching plans to the surging prices, the regular congestion pricing is in the fast lane, ready to go live on January 5th. Although neither federal judge dismissed the lawsuits from opponents in their entirety, the refusal to issue preliminary injunctions all but guaranteed it will take hold on January 5th, charging drivers $9 to enter Manhattan below 60th Street between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m., 7 days a week, 365 days in a year. And unlike the congestion pricing in London, that was a model for New York City's plan, there is no discount for car-owning residents living inside the zone. There is also a cause for a tax credit for low-income residents earning less than $60,000 a year. Says United Federation for Teachers President Michael Mulgrew, Staten Island Borough President Vito Fasella, and the Trucking Association of New York sought the injunction blocking the start of the toll from Judge Louis Layman, but he declined to grant it. So these are some of the gory details about it, but ultimately they're trying to start this congestion pricing. And really, to be honest with you, this is going to be heavily affecting really the low-income people who live and work near Manhattan. And so this is also another war on the working class. This is part of the class war, right? This is what their excuse is. It says this will reduce traffic in Manhattan and fund long overdue investments in public transit while keeping costs lower for New Yorkers who drive in the city. We have spoken to the MTA and made it clear under no circumstances will we allow this discretionary 25% surcharge to gridlock days to be used. It says pollution and traffic congestion will be worse on the poor, working in middle-class neighborhoods of the city, and these same families are still being asked to shoulder the cost. No one disputes that New York needs to invest in public transit, but doing it on the backs of the working people in New York City is wrong and tone deaf. So yes, it is going to be tone deaf. It's going to be absolutely wrong to have the working class people shoulder this, because these are the people who are actually going to these jobs. It's not just the white collar jobs, it's the blue collar jobs, the people who are working to clean these offices, the baristas that will be making your coffee, the people who are working in the delis, the delicatesses, right? These are the people that are going to also have to shoulder this cost. You're going to have to pay $9 each day just to get to and from work while you're driving. So that is wear and tear on your car, right? Because that stop and start traffic is also bad on your brakes, right? Then on top of that, you also got to pay for the gas. And on top of that, you got to pay $9. And then what if you're coming from outside? Like, what if you have to use the LIE, the Long Island Expressway, right? What do you have to come through the Holland Tunnel? Would you got to pay like $15? Is it still $15 to go through the Holland Tunnel in order to get into Manhattan? I know it was $15. It's probably $25 knowing them because they hike up things sky high. So it's like you got to pay that. Like, let's say you're living in Newark and you're traveling in from Newark, to get in. Or what if you're traveling from Connecticut? It's crazy. And so now you have to pay more money in order to be able just to get into the city, all because the bosses want you to come back into the office because they want to get those tax subsidies because of the real estate. You see why people want to work from home? It's crazy. It's crazy on its face. It doesn't make any damn sense. So this is why other people, groups of people, and on top of that, what about restaurants, right? Well, if you're a truck driver having to deliver to a restaurant, well, that truck driver or that company is going to have to pay that surcharge every single day in order to deliver to these restaurants. Guess who's going to pass that on to consumers? So guess what? You as a worker, if you have to go to a restaurant to eat while you're still in the city in that same area, you're going to have to end up paying more for your food too, because the money in order to deliver the goods to those restaurants is going to go up, which means that their prices are going to go up. It's sad. And the thing is, it's like, my question would be, okay, if you guys are going to be charging these people a $9 surcharge just between the hours of 6 and 9 p.m. within Manhattan, are you now between the hours of 6 and 9 p.m., are you going to make it absolutely free for people to not have to pay a fare to ride the subway or the buses in Manhattan? But I don't see anything about that. Oh, but you still have to pay that fare in order to get on the subway. Meanwhile, you got the NYPD, one of the highest paid police departments in the world, that are making billions of dollars. They're getting billions of dollars from the city just to watch people jump over turnstiles and then arrest them. For how much is it for a fare? It was $2.50. Could be saving some money without actually having to pay police to watch the turnstiles. It's crazy. So with that being said, I want to share something because I know Roger lives in New York and he has some thoughts. I spoke to him and he's gave me permission to read this. So I'm going to read his thoughts. He said, there's something you need to know about the lost money during the COVID lockdowns. Those who commute into the city via the Long Island Railroad, New Jersey Transit, or the Metro North from upstate and Connecticut got used to working from home. They found out that they loved it because they got a savings raise and more sleep. No waking up earlier. No spending money on childcare because they're already home. No spending money on transportation because they're working from home. No spending money on lunch when they can walk to their refrigerator. This goes in concert with what that lady was talking about, where they want you to come into the office for their tax benefit because the government gives the companies money tax subsidies because they know that they're going to drive up the local business around the job site. Whether it's stopping for a coffee or an egg sandwich on the way, going to one of these restaurants during lunch, going to the bar after hours with their friends who live in the city. Is that lady in the video that says that you don't got bodies in the office seats, you're not contributing to the local economy, so you get your joint revoked. Mayor Adams a few years ago was crying about the need for you to come back to the city to support our essential workers. Those who lived outside the city in the suburbs or in another state like Connecticut or New Jersey said, F you, mayor. Number one, you're not my mayor or my local. You're not my mayor. Your local economy doesn't mean anything to me. Two, why should I support your essential workers and help my boss with their tax benefit when I got essential workers where I paid property taxes at the home that I own? I could go right down the street to Bob's Deli and support essential workers here. I can go to the bar in my local community where I pay property taxes as well after hours. I can go to the restaurant where I pay local taxes, and there are people in my community that I know that I'm supporting. I get more bang for my tax on my property by supporting my community than I do helping my boss with their tax benefits as I'm spending more money to jump on the train to commute into the city, spend on childcare to see my kid before I get home from work, and pay those expensive ass prices in New York City where I pay less where I'm at. So of course, these are white collar jobs and some black collar jobs, AKA information technology. Information technology jobs, there will be times where you have to show up on the site because there's something physical that has to be done. But if it's nothing physical that needs to be done, then you can remote in. However, for the people who have to be there, free public service is definitely something that they can use. So thank you very much to Roger for that. It's not just private corporations, though, that are trying to push for people to come back to the office. It's also government agencies that are also floating the idea of ending remote work. Let's talk about Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk, two irrelevant billionaires that really get on my damn nerves, but gotta talk about them.
Talk politics now. A recent proposal to require federal employees to return to the office full time has sparked some debate about how to best streamline government operations while also ensuring effective public service. Vivek Ramaswamy, he's the head of the new Department of Government Efficiency, argued that mandating in-office attendance could encourage voluntary departures among federal workers. In an interview, he said the proposal could be a way to address what he says is a bloated federal bureaucracy. Let's bring in Scott Baradell. He's a spokesperson for Stanley Systems. Thank you so much for joining us on Live Now from Fox to continue this conversation.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so this proposal from Ramaswamy here, do you think this would achieve his goal of these voluntary departures from the government? And if that did happen, what could we expect to see?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think that where we've seen it in the private sector where this has happened, you've had a lot of return to office mandates that led to a lot of voluntary departures. And it's a great way to reduce your workforce without having to pay severance and things like that, which I think is something that Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk have in mind.
Is going back.
So let's stop there. So it's not really about actual efficiency. Let's be honest. Let's keep it a buck, right? It's just about reducing workers in government agencies. But they never talk about the budget for the Department of Defense. Why? Because Elon has government contracts that are most likely tied to the Defense Department. So this is how you reduce spending while saving face. Also, this pushing more workers into the human capital stock of unemployed workers so that corporations have a larger pool of workers competing for jobs that they can pay lower rates for those jobs. Workers desperate who left the government now have to accept lower wages in the private sector, and this keeps corporations flush with an army of desperate labor to pick for them. It's nasty work. Let's continue.
Back to the office, though, really all that more productive than remote work. I know you guys conducted a survey. What did that say? What were your findings there?
Well, I think there's a lot of research that shows that the collaboration that you get in office, if it's really collaboration as opposed to just driving somewhere and being in the cubicle and driving home, if that's really built into the company culture, it can be a really positive thing. But the thing that was really interesting about the survey, and Stanley Systems helps businesses with printers, copiers, computers, it's office technology, so all for getting people back in the office. But what the survey showed is that the majority of Gen Z workers want to be in an office. Many of them never have had a chance because of COVID, and they're excited about it. So let's take advantage of that excitement.
Oh, time out. No. I call bullshit. On that. These guys. Gen Z can't afford to go back and forth just like that, and having your manager over your shoulder isn't fun. I highly doubt that the majority of them really want to get that office experience. This is Fox News trying to manufacture your consent and manipulating viewers to think that what's good for the owner class is good for the workers. As we spoke about earlier, this is not the case. They want to do this for government workers so that it influences the private sector and forces more employees back to work as well. This is all a coordinated class war attack. Look, just keep your eyes, peep game on this. My goodness. Let's continue.
Yeah, so if this does lead to those large amounts of people leaving their government positions, I guess what impact could that have? Would that send a message about the future of remote work and leading to a future of maybe even going in the office full time or not?
Yeah, I think what you have in many cases is a hybrid environment. And I think if you look at workers across the board, over 80% across generations prefer an environment that's at least hybrid. Say it's 3 days a week in the office. Maybe they don't want 5. So there's a broad consensus. And most companies would rather have their workers in the office. They've got big investments in commercial real estate. That's it's been a long history of believing in the value of bringing people together. So everybody's kind of on the same page. It's just a matter of how you want to go about doing it. Is it going to be presented as, here's the punishment, you have to come back in the office, versus here's all the reasons why it's going to be a great thing for you to come back to the office?
Could we talk?
Jesus Christ, I can't stand the way these people try to frame shit. It's a good thing I wrote my notes. Your job does not have to be your passion or your life. So as long as you get the work done, that should be what matters. Oh my gosh. Let me continue this.
Talk real quick, though. Are there any potential risks to Ramaswamy's proposal?
Hang on. Elon saying that they should want to go to the office doesn't mean shit. If they can get the work done, that's what matters. Here's a truth that I think that you all should think about. Your work should fund your life, not be your life. I'm going to repeat that. Your work should fund your life, not be your life. This is the issue with the capitalist mindset. They want you so engulfed in your work that it becomes your life. But that work doesn't benefit you. It benefits the shareholders. This is why, for instance, the arts are neglected, because it's not as profitable for the capitalists. Self-expression isn't a profitable business model. Let's finish this.
Risk. Well, the thing is, the very top, the creme de la creme of workers, they can do whatever they want. So they can work from home, they can work from wherever they want, and you're going to lose them because they can go anywhere. They have lots of choices. So you're talking about the bulk of workers that aren't at that, maybe at top 5% of workers. Yeah, you can have policies like this and not worry about the impact, but you're going to lose some real talent at the top because they have so many choices in terms of where they can work, choose their own environment.
Yeah, and we're seeing this surge of people who want to work remotely ever since COVID happened. Is that in part because people got a taste of it during COVID and they're like, I like being able to be home? Is that why we're seeing such a surge here in remote work?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people thought, oh, well, we've always worked in the office, we have to. Then when they realized that they could work at home and be effective, they were like, why do I have to do this commute? It's just kind of the experience of doing it made them realize, oh, it's possible. And a lot of companies are like, wow, it didn't really hurt our productivity. But now as we look at return to office, you had people hired during COVID who were hired from different cities because it could be remote, or they have small children at home and they can't maybe afford daycare. These situations where they were built for in their work style and everything was built for remote, and now coming into a return to office mandate, they simply, even if they wanted continued working for the office and coming into the office, they're in a different city, they've got small children at home. There are a lot of people that build their lifestyles around remote work, and now they have to change.
One of the things I want to bring up also is he said that it did not reduce productivity. And that's true. There are some studies that actually showed that productivity actually increased with working from home. but they still want you to come in. They still don't want you to work from home. Because ultimately, it's about the benefit of the shareholders. It's about the benefit for the people at the top. It's not about you, the worker. Even though you're doing the same, if not better amounts or more productive at home than you would be at the office. And plus, you don't have a manager watching you over your shoulder. Let's continue.
One of my last questions for you, let's say this is implemented, right? Let's just imagine for a minute we do have federal workers who do quit. How do they move forward in attracting talent when they do have to fully go into the office?
Well, I think, Elon Musk's approach to this has always been that, he believes that if you're truly, the kind of worker that he wants to have at one of his companies, you're going to want to come to the office. So I think he feels like and Vivek Ramaswamy and a lot of people that the government workforce is so bloated that a lot of people can leave and you're still going to have a lot of good people there. And the culture that's created are going to attract more people to the office. So I think that's the belief. And this is very kind of this whole approach of that they're taking is very radical in some ways. And a lot of people are interested to see how it's going to turn out, because I think there's a pretty broad consensus that there's probably more government workers than there maybe need to be.
No, they're not going to want to come back into the office because then they don't want to be surrounded by all that bullshit. This is the problem with the mindsets of these billionaires. They think that everybody has the same mindset as them when it comes to exploitation. And then, we want to be exploited. We want to come to the office. We want to have to spend all our money on gas and try to travel to and from the office. We anticipate getting those pizza parties for just a pat on the back on a good job. Oh my gosh. These guys just do not get it. And this is now Fox News trying to tell you, well, see, it's good. It's good that you come back to the office. It's good that you have to spend money on childcare now. It's good that you have to play office politics again. Aren't you excited? And that's one of the things I think that a lot of people just don't think about is people like Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy really are doing this because they want to benefit their corporate buddies. So then it forces the private sector, of course. So see, look, the government workers, you're not working at home anymore. So you guys have to work. You guys have to work in the office now, too. This leads to solutions because I think that a lot of people are now starting to move away from the cities, and it's going to be a real benefit to us, workers who live a more balanced life. So one of the reasons why there's a lot more demand for things like high-speed internet, so that people can work from home. So let's take a look at that because I want to get into that as well. Because more people are moving out of the area. So it says broadband access can boost rural jobs and remote work. So let me get into this really quick. It says as working from home has become the new normal of the last 3 years due to the coronavirus pandemic, there's now a greater need to adopt fiber broadband internet services, otherwise known as high-speed internet in rural areas. High-speed internet can make it possible for rural residents to find jobs and work from home, and employers may have better results hiring, onboarding, and retaining workers in regions outside of metropolitan areas. According to an Information Technology and Innovation Foundation report, rural coverage usually lags behind in urban coverage because rural areas are less densely populated and thus therefore more expensive to serve per household. In 2019, only 62% of the US population had adopted fiber broadband internet service, even though 98% of households can access high-speed internet. So the recruitment process for rural job candidates takes extra time and effort for businesses because they need to educate and possibly support these candidates for remote work. So Tanya Mead says, when interviewing rural candidates for remote jobs, my clients often experience static drop lines, frozen screens, voice and video misalignment. Clients have turned down rural remote candidates because they're unstable connection. You're limited to what you can do at home if you don't have high-speed internet. So this is one of the issues that a lot of people who are in rural areas have. And so, you know, you have to have at least 25 megabits per second download speed and then a 3 megabits per second upload speed in order for it to be considered high-speed internet. So there is actually, you know, a push to fund more high-speed internet in rural areas for people who work in rural areas, people who work remotely. It says in 2021, Congress passed the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, allocating $65 billion for states and municipalities to deploy fiber optic broadband internet to unserved or underserved populations. Specifically, a new law funnels $46.5 billion through the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment BEAD program at the National Telecommunications Information Administration, the NTIA, to supply more robust internet service to these populations. Angela Ty Bennett, Digital Equity Director for the NTIA, said that being able to provide a high-speed internet connection for people who seek employment is vital to building a robust workforce. So it says high-speed internet connections can connect people who may have challenges with transportation, childcare, or mobility to better paying job opportunities. So this is something that is becoming more and more necessary for people who work from home. And this is why a lot of people who are working from home are actually trying to now get into rural areas, because number one, it's cheaper. Number two, you can actually have more time for, you know, for yourself. You have a better work-life balance. So this can benefit you if you work in a low-cost area while making money that's from a company in a more high-cost area. And you know what? That helps. It's not a big solution because many workers can't work remotely, but for the white-collar workers, this could be a viable solution to lower cost and bring more economic sustainability in rural areas. If you're in a rural area and can make more, then you're more likely to spend more at the local grocery store, the coffee shop, the gas station, the restaurant, etc. Unfortunately, here in the United States, internet service providers, or ISPs, which are mostly private corporations themselves that put profits first, will throttle internet speeds in order to charge more. But then they hold back as well. In other developed countries, they are breaking records in internet speeds that would be a huge boom to here in the United States. I want to take you guys a look through what they're also doing in Japan, because a lot of times, you know, we talk about internet speeds here, but in places like Japan, they're whooping our butts. So let me get this here. So this is out of New Atlas. It says internet speed records shattered at 178 terabits per second. So this came out in 2020. This is 4 years old. Says the fastest internet speed in the world has been clocked at an incredible 178 terabits per second. The fast enough download to the entire Netflix library in under a second. Engineers in the UK and Japan have developed new ways to modulate light before it's beamed down optical fibers, allowing for much wider bandwidth than usual. That new top speed is insane feat. It's 17,800 times faster than the current fastest internet connections available to consumers. So 10 gigabits per second in places like Japan, US, and New Zealand. Even NASA can't compete with its 400 gigabytes per ESNet. It also leaves other experimental devices in the dust, including a photonic chip developed in Australia that clocked still impressive 44 terabytes per second just a few months ago, and it beats the previous record holder, a Japanese team with 150 terabytes per second, by almost 20%. So you have these countries that are literally developing internet speeds that are much faster, that would facilitate better work from home conditions. But unfortunately, because they don't want you to work from home because it benefits them, then of course they're not going to do that. And then, of course, they're not going to want you to have faster internet speeds. Let me ask you this. Did you know that the United States is not even in the top 10 countries of internet speeds? Let's take a look. So this is World Population Review. Let's take a look here. So it says the top 10 countries with the fastest mobile internet speeds. We're not going to look at that because we're talking about home internet. It says the top 10 countries with the fastest broadband internet speeds in megabits per second. Top 10 countries. So the UAE, United Arab Emirates, 398.51 megabits per second. Qatar has 344 megabits. Kuwait. So the first three are literally Arab countries. Arab countries that have less money than us, and yet they are able to have faster internet speeds than we do. The top three are Arab countries. Now, next is South Korea. Then the Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, Saudi Arabia, Bulgaria, and Luxembourg. The top 10 countries with internet speeds, and not the United States anywhere in sight. Why? Because they want you to come back to the office. Because it's all benefit for who? The people at the top. So let me share this with you guys, because a lot of Americans are now leaving. A lot of them are now leaving the cities and living in remote areas, and they're doing well. Oh, I wanted to share something else, but this is also a good point. It says working from home increases productivity. This is an article that talks about research from Ergotron. Says researchers polled 1,000 remote and hybrid employees about the productivity, wellness, and other facets. They found that working from home improves work-life balance, increases productivity, and fosters healthier lifestyles. It's a win-win situation that workers relish for its flexibility. But this is one of the reasons why they're trying to leave the cities and go into more rural areas. This is out of Business Insider. This says young Americans are going country, reversing decades-long trend of moving to cities. So, it says in recent years, younger professionals have been bucking a long-time trend of their age group, moving to cities. Now with flexible work arrangements and high housing costs, many are foregoing more densely populated areas in favor of rural America. Those are bringing bigger houses, lower prices, and a different pace of life, and their own new challenges. So in recent analysis of a census data by Hamilton Lombard, a demographer at the University of Virginia, found that 63% of rural counties and small metros experience increases in their populations of 25 to 44-year-olds between 2020 and 2023, compared to 27% between 2010 and 2013. Northern Georgia The Mountain West and New England were rural regions were a particularly strong population growth among young Americans. The 10 counties that saw the biggest influxes of younger adults were largely rural. The most populated of all those areas is Hayes County, Texas, and the suburbs of Austin, which had a population of around 280,500 in 2023. Musselshell County, which is the least populous, have just 5,308 people as of 2023. So this is a chart talking about the ages from 25 to 44, the top 10 counties young Americans had migrated to. So as you can see, 38% jump in Custer County, 37% in Kaufman County, 34% in Broadwater County, and 29% in Dawson County, and then 28% in Rockwall County, respectively. But it's a huge jump because they're able to work from home. So that's a big shift from pre-pandemic patterns from 1980 to 2020. White-collar workers increasingly moved from densely populated areas per Lombard's analysis. That trend was expected to continue until the pandemic and the rise of remote work. Since 2020, Lombard found rural areas and smaller cities have attracted that younger workforce and the highest rate in nearly a century. So this is showing another chart there. So they're talking about how people are now moving from places like from Washington, California, and Minnesota. So it says Smith, the manager and roaster at a local Peregrine Coffee, said that the area has traditionally skewed older, but saw an influx of younger workers over the last few years. Smith said that the area's new residents are buying homes even as the costs have gone up. To me, it's more like the people that are moving here have a romanticized version of what it is to live up here. So, there's that challenge there. And a lot of people are, moving, but there has its own challenge here. And remember what I said about intrastate gentrification. Well, here we go. It says recently rentals have gone really fast, adding to that rents on average have increased from about $750 in 2019 to well over $1,000 monthly. A more stark comparison is some of the county's single-family homes, many of which were built in the late 1970s and early 1980s, while they sold for about $100,000 in 2017. They range from $390,000 to $400,000 today. So this is the part that a lot of people are realizing, right? It's just that while, they're making more and they're able to work more remotely, but they're moving out to the rural areas, it's also causing the cost of living to go up in rural areas too. So I do have my concerns with that as well. My primary concern is that the gentrification of rural areas and the rising cost of living in these areas. Because the thing is like the people who have been there, they're not making that much. So if somebody who's making, let's say you're making $40,000, $45,000, $50,000 and you're barely surviving, but the area is rural, so you're doing kind of okay. You have a bunch of people who are making six figures because they're working remotely. They start to live in that area. Guess what? Everybody's going to start raising their prices, and then you're going to start getting priced out of either apartments or renting a house. And so then you're not going to be able to live there. So that's one of the primary concerns about an area like that. And I have my own personal view of a solution. But one of the things that I want to do also, because there's another variable that hasn't been talked about that I want to share as well, was something that was taught to me by Roger. And I want to make sure I read this part. He said, this is really important how remote work and the need for broadband is going to affect the politics of our state, eventually the nation, in the nation, because big cities are no longer going to be running the agenda for an entire state. People are going to just spread out evenly throughout each state. Just like how you get more legislative districts in densely populated areas, once they start spreading throughout the state, you'll get better representation, more democratized representation. For example, downstate New York, very densely populated in the state legislature. Assembly District 23 through 87, that is 64 assembly districts in one city called New York City. That is out of 150 assembly districts. So that's more than half to pass bills that are out of the assembly with some to spare. They don't even need those of us out here in the Long Island suburbs or north of the Bronx. There are 25 state Senate districts that are all located within New York City boundaries. So that's 7 short of being able to pass something out of the New York State Senate, seeing that 32 constituents as a majority seeing that 32 constituencies as a majority, because we have 63 Senate districts throughout the state. So you see how a densely populated city like New York City drives the politics of the state. Of course, you got some of the senators upstate, which will usually be senators from other densely populated cities like Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, and Albany on board. Maybe 1 or 2 out of here in the Long Island suburbs. But we have 26 congressional districts that we sent to Washington, D.C. Out of that 26, 15 are located in New York City, Long Island suburb area, which is more than half of who we are sending to Washington. You see what I mean? The densely populated drives the politics of the state and Washington. And so this goes into what's being said, especially about what's being said is essentially, you know, the conditions that are of a concern within, you know, not just states that are more rural, but also the rural parts of a state that are less densely populated. But as people move out into these areas, it's going to be more spread out, which I would like to see more spread out. But at the same time, I do not want to see the gentrification and pushes to people who actually live there out. What I think would be best would be to foster and create more worker cooperatives in these areas so that the money doesn't go to the top, but spreads out among all the workers so that the people who move to rural areas and the workers do better. Co-op grocery stores, co-op farms, gas stations, restaurants, and recreation establishments, etc., would affect the workers in a positive way rather than a negative way. Pushing for citizen ballot initiatives in these areas could beat the capitalists to the punch and grow worker cooperatives in areas in which would encourage it in bigger cities. So goes to rural areas, so then it starts to be encouraged in the cities, in the municipalities. And so when it comes to workers working remotely, I actually am in favor of that because I want workers to have a work-life balance. The problem is that because we're in a class war, the cappies don't like that. They don't want to see you have a good work-life balance. Because ultimately it's about their bottom line. It's about the shareholders. It's about the people at the top. They're gonna drag you back, kicking and screaming. They're gonna drag you back to the office, where you get to have that mundane, that mid coffee, where you have to, play office politics in order to at least try to somewhat get ahead or keep your job. Not to mention, let me ask some of the women, especially in the chat, if you were able to work from home, you don't have to worry about sexual harassment now, do you? If you're working from home. That's another variable you don't have to worry about. Because that happens in office politics too. These are the things that people don't think about, or not people don't think about. The ruling class, they know this, but they don't care. And so I honestly really do hope if you can work from home, do it. But at the same time, try to encourage worker ownership, especially if you live in an area that's less densely populated, that's more rural. Look, if you can pull some of these workers to the side, let's say you work in a rural area, or you live in a rural area and you're working from home, and you go to the grocery store, you start telling the guy that's stocking shelves, right? But hey, what if you guys actually owned, or if you know somebody that's trying to start a business, talk them about starting a business and making it a worker co-op so that all of them and their co-workers can actually collectively own and operate it democratically. Like, try to foster that in rural areas. If you know somebody that, if you go to a farm, let's say you want to get your eggs, your meat, you want to get some of your produce, talk to them about having a co-op farm. Let's start to use our influence and our dollars to be able to influence more egalitarian systems on top of doing mutual aid. You never know. It can really help out. But yes. Did you guys take the poll? Go ahead and take the poll, because I really want to see you guys' thoughts about this, but I really do think this is part of the class war that we've been fighting against. Let's go ahead and take a look at the poll. Let's ride the poll. Not ride the poll, but you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying? All right. So, out of 116 votes, if you could work from home, would you? 100% work from home. 67% said yes. 3% said no, 100% work in the office. This is interesting, though. Okay, it just changed. 20% said hybrid work, 50-50 from home and office, and then 8% said not sure. So it's, a decent amount of people want to do hybrid, but most people want to work from home. And I get it. Because the thing is, it's like, look, as you see, I'm literally working from home right now. Right? And when I was working for the Jill Stein campaign, I was working from home. And let me tell you, I actually did long ass days. Like, I would do 14-hour shifts working for Jill Stein. Like, if I was going to the office, 8 hours and I'm done, I'm out. But I'm literally doing 14-hour days. But it's not just Jill Stein, but I'm doing that. I'm also doing work for RBN, and then I'm doing my channel. And so I'm doing 14-hour days of just juggling a network, my channel, and then the campaign. And the bulk of it was actually me working for the Stein campaign. But I'm doing 14-hour days. That's why I was extremely exhausted. But the thing is that working from home, you tend to also take less breaks because you just want to get it done. But your work-life balance and the stress is less. And who do I have to complain about when it came to work? I didn't really have to complain as much, because I don't have to see my fellow coworkers that often, except for a couple of Zoom meetings. Now, my coworkers that I was part of the campaign with were really great people. But let's say if I was working just in a private sector company in an office, you're working with people who may get on your nerves. But instead, if you're working from home, you don't have to be around them all the time. Or sometimes they want to know all this different stuff about your family and stuff. And you're just trying to keep it business. You know, this is why we need a system where it favors the workers, not the people at the top. We're going to win this class war, even if we got to move out the cities to do it. Do your part. Work from home. Go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you guys so much for being here for that segment. Let's go into, let's check the Rumble to see if we have any Rumble rants or any chats in the Rumble side. Looks like we are good on Rumble, so we're fine there. Thank you very much. And let's go to the Rockman side. All right. You see. Oh, and I forgot to place the homelessness link. Roger, were you talking about the link for the Associated Press link that I had? I don't know. I'll put that in there just in case. All right, so let's go and share the screen. All right. All right, Roger says, now workers can negotiate from a position of strength. How bad you want me to come back? Are you going to pay for my transportation, childcare, raise? Matter of fact, F a raise, share some of them tax benefits. Hey, Jay, did you read the MTA is also increasing the fares on the subways? They are forcing you to use all. What? Adams, you are blowing minds right now. Hochul, you're blowing minds right now. I need you to use your brain right now. You literally have people who are literally have to jump turnstiles because they can't even afford the fare. And now you want to raise the prices on the fares just so that people will pay more? Who is that money actually going to? Because don't tell me that it's actually for the betterment of the city when you literally could rate. Look, you literally have one of the richest areas in this country, Adams. You literally have Manhattan, and you can raise prices on people earning $500,000. Like, how many people earn more than $500,000 in Manhattan? There's a lot. You can raise taxes on those people without ever having to touch anybody below $499,000. And yet you are seriously going to raise prices on the people who use public transportation? Are you out your damn mind? This dude, y'all need to get your boy. He said, hey Jay, don't forget to show Japan's internet speed rivals China. Oh yeah. I forgot to share that. Japan has also the internet speed that is crazy. Japan, that's the one I wanted to share. So this is Japan breaks internet speed at 319 terabits per second. I thought I just shared this. Oh, it was a different article, but it said Japan just announced a team of engineers from the National Institute of Information and Communication Technology research group has just achieved a record-setting internet speed of 319 terabits per second, doubling the previous world record. Says the ICT scientists use optical fiber, small tubes that pass information using light, which are needed to achieve the record. Regular copper cables couldn't carry such speeds and require much more complex infrastructure to work. To achieve this record, teams had to use some special add-ons that are only familiar to the very skilled and educated engineers working with lasers. We demonstrate the recirculating transmission of 552 times 25 gigahertz space channels covering 120 nanometers of SC and L bands of 120. I forgot what that's called. 125 diameter, 4 core fiber measuring a decoded through output of 319 terabytes per second at 301 kilometers, as the paper submission at the International Conference on Optical Fiber Communication says. So this is wild. It says the team could carry this speed for over 3,000 kilometers and maintain a bandwidth that creates without any performance drops. The engineers said that even regular optical fiber infrastructure could support these types of speeds, but it would need to go through a few modifications first. It's almost impossible to imagine this sort of raw bandwidth without coming to our homes and offices. However, the applications and possibilities will be endless. We wouldn't hold our breath waiting on our local ISPs, internet service providers, to implement the tech anytime soon, though. And I'm going to tell you why this part where internet service providers wouldn't be doing it. Because they're already making their money, and by throttling the internet, they're able to have tiers of speeds, and you just keep paying so they can make profit. This is why I'm against private companies being internet service providers. I want to see something like the Tennessee Valley Authority, where it's community owned, operated, so that the only price you pay is to pay for the operations, maintenance, and the money that they put away for emergencies, and that's it. There's absolutely no profit. And I'm not talking about a not-for-profit. I'm talking about community owned and operated. And votes for any type of upgrades or any type of maintenance is done democratically and voted on by the community. That's it. Right? The people who work there, that's part of the operations. The pay for people for operations, the technicians and all that, the people who work on the cables and stuff. There's all technicians. They all get paid through operation costs. And so that's all the money that they make. Because here's the thing. We literally could have extremely high internet speeds. Like, we wouldn't probably have this. But what if we can get a terabyte per second in all households? What if we can get a terabyte per second? What if we can get 500 gigs of upload speed? And then a terabyte per second, or 2 or 3 terabytes per second. Imagine being able to just, and then because there's no downshift or no degrading of the speeds for longer distances, you can literally live out in the boonies. You can live out in the boonies and work from home, and your speeds are damn near instant. But they don't want to do it because ultimately capitalists do not innovate unless there is a direct correlation to making more profit. This is why we didn't start going into space until the Soviets started doing it. We didn't go into space. Sputnik was the reason why we got NASA. We have NASA because the socialists started going to space before us. That's why. That's how we got NASA. If they cannot make money off of it instantly, they will not innovate. This is why when people go, "Oh my God, capitalism, it breeds innovation." No, it doesn't. No, because you need somebody that's going to want to push humanity forward despite or outside of the need for profits. This is why a lot of medications and drugs, the R&D, the research and development is actually done in these public colleges. Because to do research and development from these for-profit corporations, they're not going to do it because there's no money benefit in it. But then they get the patents, and then they monetize it, and then they start to make money. That's how capitalism works. It does not breed innovation. It keeps you stagnant. What the hell do you think? We got all these sequels and remakes and nostalgia porn that is constantly thrown in our faces when it comes to entertainment. Because they don't want to make risks. Capitalism stays clear of risks so that it keeps making the same money over and over and over again. Because if it makes risk, then that means it has a possibility of losing profit. Capitalism breeds mediocrity. But they don't want you to know that. And see, you got countries out here kicking our asses when it comes to internet speeds and innovation because they're not as devoted to capitalism as we are. Whew. It's sad. We live in a system that doesn't want us to improve just so that they can make an extra buck. Says, while mega equals million, giga equals billion, and tera equals trillion, now Japan is experimenting with peta, which is quadrillion. Oh yeah, petabytes. Hang on. Whoop. Let me share it. Oh, it's pretty short. I can share that. We're now getting into petabytes. It is crazy, dude. And these are fiber optics. Don't they look cool? Oh my gosh, I wish I had that in my room just as a light.
Everybody feels like they could use a faster internet connection, and now engineers in Japan have shattered the record for data transmission. The team managed to transmit more than 20 times the global internet traffic per second through a single optical fiber. If you're one of the lucky few people to be connected to the world's fastest consumer internet connection, you'll be enjoying a breezy 10 gigabits per second. A bigger group is running a 1 gigabits per second connection, while most of us get by on a few hundred megabits per second. But now, Japan's National Institute of Information and Communications Technology, NICT, has clocked an absolutely insane data transmission rate of 22.9 petabits per second. To put that in perspective, a petabit is 1 million gigabits, so that's fast enough to transmit the entire internet's second-by-second traffic 22 times over with bandwidth left over. Even NASA only gets 46 terabits per second, or 0.046 petabits per second. To reach this milestone, NICT took advantage of a few emerging technologies. Instead of just one core for transmitting data, the cable contains 38, each of which can transmit data in 3 modes for a total of 114 spatial channels. Each mode in each spatial channel is made up of 750 wavelength channels across 3 bands, S, C, and L, for a bandwidth of 18.8 Hz. Altogether, that adds up to a data transmission rate of 22.9 petabits per second, which is more than twice the previous record, set in 2020. The team says that optimizing the error correction could allow the system in its current form to reach speeds of up to 24.7 petabits per second. However, don't expect to be streaming the entirety of Netflix in fractions of a second in the near future. Decoding the data involves complex signal processing, which would require specialized devices called MIMO receivers to be installed throughout networks. In the shorter term, a 4-core version that only transmits data in 1 mode per core is compatible with existing infrastructure, and still manages a respectable data speed of over 1 petabits per second.
So I mean, also you would have to change the cords and things like that within the ground, which also would mean that they would have to take the money that they would use for profits and then, upgrade that. And they're not prepared to do that. They just want to keep things going the way they are until somebody else does it, like a government that does it themselves, and then they'll want to take it over. But they're not going to innovate for that. It's just not going to happen. Thank you very much for that. And then thank you very much, Roger. He says, Jay, as much as I know about this shit, Larry can tell you infinitely more about it. Ask him to talk about how the New York State works and whom the money is going to. You have to get him on and ask him. I promise Chris C in the chat that you read my CBI solution if we were a CBI state. I sent the screen record again. There are times where it looks like the video ends, but it doesn't. Just give it a moment. How much would public broadband would help indie media? Yes. NASA sounds too much like massa. All right. Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. Let me share that as well. Okay. All right. So thank you very much for this. It says amendments I'd like to see. Actually, hang on. You showed another one earlier. Okay. I think this is the one. I want to share this I want to share this one really quick first. Because I think this is really interesting, especially in regards to if New York was a public initiative state, ballot initiative state, this would be great. So infrastructure says an amendment that calls for setting up a parallel statewide publicly owned operated broadband infrastructure, free at the point of service, offering universal internet access, running the latest internet protocol version of the moment and of the time of this writing would be Internet Protocol version 6 that will run alongside current privately owned broadband infrastructure, enshrined into the state constitution, in which the service offered by the state broadband service must be on par with the top 5 countries in terms of speed, reliability, quality, performance, scalability, and bandwidth, while providing universal access. Will allow for municipalities to charter their own municipally owned and operated broadband infrastructure that must either match or goes beyond what the state is offering while providing universal access. This will be the only public broadband infrastructure in the state. Its main source of financing will come strictly from public banks, local and state. It will also allow for people to connect their mobile devices to the public broadband as well, where people can buy phones that doesn't come with the service plan with any other private telecommunications service providers. And the buyer gets to choose whether the service provider they wish to connect with. It will be made part of the government's jobs guarantee for those who qualify, and for those who don't, they will receive paid training so that they can qualify. While the public internet service provider will be for the public, offering only internet access to the public, be it data or service. So private internet service providers will be regulated to have the option of either being a sub ISP to private companies, organizations, education, and religious institutions, where they will be allowed to set up private networks, aka intranets, within those entities while using software products and network security protocols, aka virtual private networks or VPNs, to connect to other remote sites within their institution, organization, or business through the public domain of the internet, or instead run their own physical private internet lines between different remote sites within their organization or company instead of going through the public domain of the internet, where the public broadband infrastructure and public ISP will only offer access. The private ISP can offer their business clients IT services beyond internet access in the realm of administration, management, maintaining, filtering, upgrading, migration, new installs, repair, and cybersecurity for the clients, be they businesses, schools, nonprofits, organizations, intranet working, infrastructure, and personal computers owned by individuals. So I don't know if that's the entire thing that you wanted me to see, that you wanted me to read up, Roger, but let me see this. Okay, yeah. So that's basically what you were wishing for, if you could have a complete ballot initiative. Yeah, and that's a good question. Like, how much would public broadband help indie media? It would help us tremendously within this state, within all the states, really. I would love to see it. Let's go to the comments in this chat. Christy says, random question, just to hear your thoughts. Do you think that some corporations will do a WFH, but punish their worker? Oh, do you think some corporations will do a work from home, but punish their workers with lesser pay to make up for lack of in-person office staff? Just pondering, skeptical. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to do that. If, you know, because of course this is a class war and they would want to pay workers less for the same job. This is why we got to fight to, you know, make it so that workers can actually start pushing for worker cooperatives and workers to actually own the businesses. Start changing the culture around work so that workplaces are run democratically. We need to spread democracy to the workplaces, because ultimately people are subject to totalitarian rule 8 hours a day or more, 5 days a week. You're literally going under totalitarian rule every single time you do that. And so whether you do it from remotely or you're doing it in the office, we have to get away from that. We have to get away from this dictatorial, totalitarian type of work atmosphere, because it is killing us and it's harming us greatly. This is why, as a lover of democracy, I think democracy in the workplace should be one of our first and foremost things that we change in this country. But yeah, thanks for the question, Chris. Let me see. George says the product of neoliberal austerity policies and law is that slavery across all social economic classes, oligarchs included. That's why it's a death cult, IT Western civilization. That Wolf says, and they can pay themselves a good wage. Yes, if they actually are able to have, you know, democratically run workplaces, they can pay themselves a living wage, a thriving wage, really. Hilliard Grigor says they want you stressed and sick. acorns feed off that misery and loosh. And the thing is like that also pushes less health, which pushes the pharmaceutical industrial complex, which pushes, it pushes big pharma. It pushes, for people to pay into systems like, private health insurance, things like that. It's all one big system, and it's really sad. Let me see. Let's continue. Sela says yes, and they want to force the poor into OMI program to purchase MTA fare. What's OMI? I don't know what that is. I'm sorry, I'm bad with acronyms, but yeah. Oh, Chima says, hey, I just donated through Rumble. You skipped me. Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on, let me check that. I didn't see it. It didn't show up for me. Let me see. Either that or I went too far ahead. I can't see anything. Yeah. Let me show you. See, there's nothing in here in the live chat. Let me see. Is there a pop-out chat? I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't show me anything. Hang on. Enable slow chat. Wait, what's that? I should have. I can't see it. I'm sorry. Damn. I'm sorry, Chima. That's the only problem with Rumble, man. Once you put something in there, especially if you put something early, I can't. Damn. Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, Chima. I can't see it. If you can, I'll look for, like, if you put in YouTube chat, you don't have to contribute anything. I'll read it. So just let me know. Bad Wolf says the federal, state, and local governments wouldn't allow such a thing. Absolutely, Carlos. Capitalism is definitely predatory. I give you that. Roger says workers are saving more, removing, and even if the boss pays less. Yeah, that's true. I just don't want the workers to get shafted any more than they already are. Mary says, shout out to the striking workers at Amazon and Starbucks. Absolutely. That's also a really good thing. Roger says, always remember unions will not stop your boss from outsourcing your job. That's another point too, though. You got to remember that. He said also Musk Bezos taking the case to SCOTUS to deem unions unconstitutional. 2025, we are taking only direct flights to worker co-ops. No connecting flights, aka unions. Yeah, the thing is, like, okay, I'm sorry, Chima. Thank you very much, though. I appreciate it. Okay. But yeah, it's, when it comes to this BS from these corporate dictators, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to force people really to just not make enough to survive, so that you're desperate. Oh, and I wanted to do this. Okay. Let me share this too, because I wanted to share. Can't believe I forgot to share this. I didn't put it in my notes. That's why. But this goes into, in fact, you know what? Screw it, because I'm over 3 hours. I'm gonna share this. Not share, but well, yeah, I'm gonna share this link in the chat. A TED Talk by Professor Anthony Zinkis on how capitalism negatively affects your brain development, especially when it comes to poverty. So if you guys want to share that with your friends, share that with your family, go ahead. It's good stuff. Let me go into here to share that there too, because I think that that will be beneficial for a lot of people. Because the problem is that a lot of times people with capitalist brain, they'll end up saying, well, capitalism breeds innovation. And I'm like, well, if it breeds innovation, it definitely breeds innovation of your brain melting, because of you always having to look over your shoulder because you're constantly in fight or flight mode, and your cortisol levels are super damn high because you're trying to survive. That's the only thing that innovates. But anyways, Roger says no more fighting 21st century villains. The reason unions worked 100 years ago was because after World War II, they were the last country standing. We were the last country standing, so no country to outsource to. That's true. Devin says, ask JB, have you heard about the May 1st, 2028 national strike? Here's my thing. Well, I'm all in favor of a general strike. Number one, you need to keep that stuff secret. You need to keep that stuff underground. And on top of that, because the cappies will actually peep game, and a lot of times what these people go, oh, we're going to strike for, and then they insert how long they're going to do the strike. I'm like, no. You do not give them a time, a duration of a strike. That strike is indefinite until our demands are met. That's how it works. You do not give them a time limit, because then they're going to wait you out. No, do not give them a time limit on how long you strike. Know your enemy. These people got infinite amounts of cash. They're flush with cash. While I do support a general strike, I really do. My thing is how we roll it out. And also, you don't do it essentially from right close to the end of the production line. You start at the beginning of the production line, right where it starts to bottleneck. This is why you go to the longshoremen. This is why you go to the truck drivers. You go to the people who do the raw materials till they go and don't do nothing. And then while you do that, you build mutual aid so that you can support them while they're not working. So that people, because then guess what? If you force, let's say you force the farmers to stop farming, right? Or not the farmers to stop farmers, because we still need to eat. But if you force the truck drivers to stop, not force, but you help the truck drivers to stop, right? And we ain't driving nowhere, right? Those truck drivers still need to earn a living, or at least make enough money to eat and, live, right? So then you do mutual aid to make sure that they still have a roof over their head and, food in their mouths while they're not driving. But then if those truck drivers are not delivering food to the restaurants, then that forces the restaurant workers, they ain't got no work either. So then that forces them to have to go to an automatic strike, because now they can't serve food that they can't get. Or if you start at the beginning of the supply chain, then other people can't do what they need to do. And that's how you do it. And then you go to major arteries. You know what I'm saying? You don't cut off the artery here. You got to go to the aorta. You know what I'm saying? You got to go to these major valves. And the problem is that a lot of times people don't want to do it because they're afraid that if they stop, then they're not going to be able to have enough money to feed their kids. They're not going to have enough money to have a roof over their head. So this is why mutual aid is so important, because once you start doing that, then you're just like, okay, we're going to take care of you as you stop doing this work for these cappies. And then watch the shareholders panic. Watch them panic. Right? But that's why mutual aid is so important. So you can support the people in these vital pressure points. Man. Yeah, definitely. Definitely, Devin. So thank you for that. And then one more on Rockman, Roger. Okay. I love when trolls come in the chat. I've been insulted so much in 2024 it doesn't even faze me anymore. But anyways, how much a public broadband would help in it? Read the Gothamist, fourth link, paragraph down. Fourth paragraph down. Says to make the math even more complicated, the Port Authority is scheduled to hike its own bridge and tunnel fee the same day congestion pricing goes live. The price increases reflect in the map above, and the NTA and Port Authority have differing definitions of peak periods, adding another layer of confusion. The MTA would charge its $9 base toll for passenger vehicles during its peak hours, which will run from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. on weekdays and from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on weekends. At all other times, those drivers will be charged just $2.25 an hour. These people are out of their damn minds. I'm telling you right now. Oh my gosh. I tell you, they're really trying to screw over just the working class. Says James, I am wary of general strikes because it can hurt people like you and Sergio who are on dialysis. What if there's a part for those machines you use? I rather worker co-ops take over, and that part can't be delivered. Yeah, that's the only thing. It's like, how do we do it without harming the most marginalized people within our communities? That's another thing, you know. It's going to happen in a way that it's going to happen in a way where we're going to have to build up like community and doing mutual aid in these streets. That's going to be the answer to do this. You know. All right, Greg, you got your attention. Who's the fat loser that never worked a day in his sad, decrepit life, acting like he speaks for workers? Well, the fat loser that you're watching right now is actually went to school at a magnet high school for commercial foods and culinary arts, then went to work in the commercial foods and culinary arts industry for 6 years, trying to be a chef, but then got sick because I was diagnosed with nephrotic syndrome at the age of 9. It is a disease I was born with, and then my kidneys failed. So I went on kidney dialysis. Been on dialysis for the last 17 years, and now I'm trying to get myself a kidney transplant. But in the meantime, I also was working in different industries as well, while also being disabled. I'm also doing mutual aid on the ground, that's trying to help out the unhoused in my community, which also is mutual aid, so that we can actually build dual power to circumvent the capitalist system, so that people can actually have an equal, equitable, and egalitarian system, so that people like you can actually have housing for all, healthcare for all, and having food and education for all, and also a livable planet so you don't die. But yeah, apparently, according to you, mutual aid is just a grift for losers like me. So, I mean, if that's your opinion, then that's whatever the hell you think it is. But at the same time, here's the issue with people like you. You actually spend your time actually giving me a view. Thank you so much for the view, by the way. Instead of actually doing the shit that actually would impact your community. So instead, you use your miserable life in order to be able to try to make people like me feel bad for doing the damn things that I'm doing in these streets. But at the same time, you're not doing one goddamn fucking thing, because you're a fucking loser coming on a fucking channel trying to make me feel bad for doing the things that I'm doing that's actually better than you. Am I better than you? Yes, I am. I'm going to say it. Because at least I'm actually trying to help people instead of bringing people down. I use my tools to build while you use your tools to destroy. What about your life, Greg? It's crazy, man. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I get comments on I get comments constantly calling me names and stuff like that on Twitter. And it's crazy how people are just mean for being mean's sake, when in reality, they could put all that energy to actually helping their communities. You could be like Roger or people like Hempcar, who are constantly feeding information in order to actually build up the world and make things better. You know, you could be like all the rest of the people in the chat who are brilliant, compassionate, and loving people who are literally trying to just live their lives, but also impart something good and compassionate to the people, you know, around them. I mean, don't be like the Elons. Don't be like the Donalds. Don't be like the George Soroses. Don't be like these cappies that are constantly trying to just think about themselves, and then they leave the rest of the world behind, thus destroying themselves in the process too, because they don't realize that they're all part of this same global whole. That's the problem with capitalism right now, is that it leads to brain rot, to people like Greg that actually want to come into channels, small, tiny little channels that make them feel big and muscular and strong, while they're actually just contributing to the degradation of society that capitalism has actually perpetuated. It's crazy, you know? But I guess that's the problem with when you have a system that focuses on exploitation and doesn't focus on actually caring about your fellow human beings. Smoke a bowl or something. Anyway. Thanks, Roger. And by the way, me having a channel, I'm actually a business owner. I actually own my own means of production. I'm literally doing what communists and socialists do right now. Oh my goodness. And I don't say that I'm better than you as just like an absolute. The thing is like how good you are is a measure really of at that moment that you're trying to do what you can in order to advance society in a positive, equal, and equitable way. And we all fall short, right? But you're falling short right now. And and I'm letting you know you're falling short right now. And I'm doing it. And to be honest with you, if I didn't care about you, I wouldn't say it. But you are falling short right now by doing that. You know, it's not a good look. You could be doing so much better right now. They haven't commented anymore, so I think they left the video. It's whatever. But I think it's a good lesson, right? To be the best version of yourself. Don't let that temptation, get into your heart so that you start saying mean shit to people online just because it makes you feel better. Spread love, because that actually will help people. It's funny, and I don't mean to harp on this, but here's my thing. I actually think that it would be better to try to build people up, because you are literally going to, if it's going to eventually come back to you and help you. And it's not in a selfish way, but it really is helping you to be being a better human being and helping other people will literally help save somebody's life. Like, what if I was so emotionally unstable that I took to heart what he said, and then next thing you know, you guys find out that I'm no longer on this planet? There are people who are really on their last leg right now. We have to love each other, man. We got to start loving each other and being more compassionate, because this world, this system does not give a damn, because it only gives a damn about profits. This is why I always say leave the world better than you found it, man, because you could do so much good. Be the best version of yourself. Oh, George. Good one. Traumatized people often traumatize themselves the most. Greg is simply afraid to consider the contradictions of capitalism. It's already failed to serve humanity at large. Hurt people, man. Hurt people. We gotta do better. Next time, Greg, if you're still listening, next time you're in another chat, spread some positivity and love to other people. And I guarantee you'll actually feel more better about yourself. Now, do I have anything else? Okay. So just making sure that I'm good on everything. So tomorrow is going to be RBN roundtable. We're going to have Dr. CBS on. So it's going to be me, Sabby, and Nick. Also, just to let you guys know, of course, Rome is doing a fundraiser for it. He's going to be doing a mutual aid event on the 16th, which is in 15 days. So if you guys would like to, you guys can also donate to his tour for the poor that he's doing from behind bars, essentially. So if you guys would like to, you guys can do it from Cash App or PayPal or Venmo. So I'll be sharing that as well. And also, I'm also doing tour for the poor, not tour for the poor, but I'm doing mutual aid here in Orlando as well. But if you guys would like to, you guys can always donate to mine. It's so I'll be sharing that in a second as well too. But there is, a lot that's going on. Like next week, there's going to be a huge polar vortex that's going to be coming in, and a lot of people are going to be caught in that too. And that's one of the things that I'm actually scared about. And so I hope that a lot of people are able to be okay during this polar vortex. I think it's supposed to be coming on the 7th. I think it is. So yeah. So just to let you guys know, at RBN Orlando chapter. We're also raising funds. If you guys would like to, you guys can donate via Cash App at $Orlando RBN for mutual aid. So thank you so very much for that. We're trying to do that for our neighbors, our unhoused neighbors in this community. So any type of assistance will be greatly appreciated. And then also I will be doing the next readings. In fact, I think I will be doing the reading, and I'll have it premiere. Probably have it premiere Friday. I'm thinking about it premiering Friday. Oh, and also Shane from Ethos Media Network will be joining me on Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we'll be having a conversation there. So I'll be doing a special stream with Shane from Ethos Media Network. So that's going to be a great conversation. We talk about some news stories, and I'll be getting also his hero origin story too as well. So that's going to be great. And yeah. Oh, and another thing I want to say. So as far as my kidney transplant goes, if you guys would like to become a donor, because yes, I am also trying to get a kidney transplant, then I can give you guys the website, so you guys can also see if you qualify to be a donor for the kidney transplant. Let me see where that tweet that I put out about that is. I'm sorry. I'm passing Sabby on New Year's Eve, and she cracked me up. Oh my gosh. I got it. You guys just see it. It is hilarious, but gotta love Sabby, man. She was lit. She was lit, and I'm just loving it. Anyways, let me share this so you guys can read. It's better if I just read it. I said, so I'm working on getting a kidney transplant, as many of you know. I've been on dialysis for 17 plus years now. If you'd like to see about being a kidney transplant donor and see if you're a match, you can do so from any state in the United States. This is a deep decision, though, and not to be taken lightly. You will be giving an invaluable gift. No matter what, I thank you for your well wishes, positivity, and support. And so if you guys would like to, I'm going to share the link in the chat. If you guys want to see if you would be a match as far as donating a kidney, and here you go into the chat. And yeah, I mean, if people are like, what's your blood type? O positive. And then so yeah, if you guys would like to see about that. So yes, it's going to be a good year for 2025, and I will make it to 5,000 subs. I will. We're manifesting that right now. So it shall be written, so it shall be done. Okay. Anywho, so with that being said, I'm going to head on out. It is very late for me. I did not mean to be live this long, but these subjects were very important. And yeah, so yeah, I was almost said happy anniversary. Happy New Year, Carrie. Thank you so very much to all of you guys for wishing me happy New Year. Greg is not leaving the world better than you found it. Sometimes we miss the mark. Sometimes we do. But yeah, we're going to do better this year than we did last year. Anywho, so thank you so very much to everybody for tuning in for this stream. And then for also tuning in to RBN tomorrow. Appreciate it very much. You guys are the real ones. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Yes, and like I always say, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Smoke them if you got them, drink them if you got them. If you ain't got them, then watch something hilarious, because joy is revolutionary. Yes. I love you guys for watching. You guys have yourself a great and happy new year. We have 364 days to go. I love you guys for watching. Wow. Forehead kisses. Take care of each other. Also, take care of the most marginalized people around you. And be kind to yourselves as well. We're in for a good one, guys. See you tomorrow. Thank you so very much for watching my channel, and I deeply appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you wish to support the channel further, so I can keep bringing you content that is educational and informative, you can become a patron on patreon.com/Jaybefaunt. You can find that link in the pinned comment or in the description below. No matter what you give, you'll be supporting independent media and education that helps make the world better. Thank you so much, and you can watch more of my content here. Mwah. Forehead kisses, and have a beautiful day.